Councillor Norton? Oh,
Yes, sir. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Welcome to Monday, October 28th meeting of the Saint John Common Council. We have Councillor Killen online. She's online with Beatrix, Kathleen, Harris, Killen. Am I correct on that? Excellent. Welcome to both of you this evening.
Yes, you've got the name right. And
Excellent.
she's currently asleep, so hopefully she stays that way.
Exactly. So we're going to, we have Councillor Hickey. Oh, I don't have Councillor Hickey. Sorry, Hickey. Not Councillor Hickey any longer. We've got MLA Hickey in the audience this evening. Welcome. We knew you loved us. Can't stay away. It's all good. And I've got Alex Sullivan in the audience, who's our UMB political guru, I'm going to say. Yeah, you are. That's what I've heard. All right. We're going to start off with a land acknowledgement, and I've asked Councillor Stewart to read that this evening.
The land on which the city of Saint John, or Menequest, is situated is the traditional territory of the Lewistawake. The Lewistawake, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and the Pescatomakate, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let's take a moment to reflect.
Okay, I'd ask everyone to stand, please, for the national anthem. Okay, City Clerk, first item.
Thank you, Your Worship. First item is 2.1, approval of minutes of October the 15th.
Minutes of October the 15th on the deputy, and Councillor Stewart on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is approval of the agenda. And I would like to advise council that the presentation for item 8.1 was not able to make it tonight, so St. John Arts Board. So we would ask that that be removed from the agenda. Then there are a number of additions from Committee of the Whole. Those would be 17.1, resolution with respect to compressed work week. 17.2, land exchange Upper Loch Lomond. 17.3, legal proceeding BCG Engineering. 17.4, agreement purchase and sale for 75 Smythe. 17.5, early access agreement Retail Drive. And 17.6, appointments to committees.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve the agenda, as you've just heard. The deputy and Councillor Redwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next, disclosures of conflict of interest, if we have any.
We do. I've got Councillor Stewart,
17.5.
17.5, right. Councillor Red one.
17.5 as well, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item.
Next is the consent agenda.
Deputy, over to you to read the consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Move 5.1 through to 5.4, please.
Take a seconder, Councillor Sullivan. On the question, Councillor Red one.
Mayor, I just have a question on 5.2. People have been really excited with this party block trailer. I'm just wondering when is it available to book? Because I know some people were hoping to kind of plan some things earlier. If staff can kind of let me know if the booking time is.
Lori Lambert. Yeah. I think, do we have Lori Lambert online up there to answer any questions in 5.2? Oh, here we go.
Hi there, through your worship to the councillor. The block party trailer is available for July 1st through to September, and it follows the availability of the summer students that we have. And it also, we don't want it to conflict with the green machine as well. So just between the two of them, that's what we had decided to do, is open it up for June 1st. To allow for booking beginning in July.
Yeah, I know that some people have had some challenges because they were trying to book their events earlier. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if there's any opportunity to do it sooner. And the only other question that I had is I was wondering if there's been any discussion into maybe purchasing a Hoyer lift for people to get into the all-terrain wheelchairs.
So that's something that's outside of the block party trailer. So I'm not sure if I can respond to that right now. I can maybe put that over to Amy or Kara to respond to.
Commissioner Poffenroff.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Just could I get that question repeated? It was about the all-terrain.
Yeah, so the all-terrain wheelchairs, sometimes people are not able to move from a regular wheelchair to the all-terrain wheelchair. I don't know how to specify them. So I'm just wondering if there's any talk about maybe getting a Hoyer lift, or I'm not sure what they're doing at Rockwood Park right now when people are having difficulty. Not everybody might have somebody to help them, so.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I will have to get back to you,
That's
Counselor.
okay.
I'm just not sure of the answer right now.
Sure,
but
no,
yeah,
if
I
you
can
want to
get
take
to you
that back,
tomorrow.
that's great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Oh, Deputy, do you have a question?
No, just a comment. I was going to mention this in members' comments, but I'll do it here. The fact that the Sunshine Program had registered 628 children this summer, and they had 25 students employed doing it at 8 different sites is something worth recognizing. I want to thank the staff for putting that program on so faithfully every year.
Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder on that, and I don't see any more questions, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 6, members' comments.
Item 6, members' comments. Here we go. Councillor Red one, you're up first.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things for Uptown Saint John. So this year is the 15th year for Chop Chop, which is going to take place from November 4th to the 10th. So check out the great eats at the Uptown restaurants. And the other thing for Uptown Saint John is they have a contest going right now. It's called Love Uptown Saint John to Win with the number 2. So when you support our local businesses, and that's any of the businesses, retail, the restaurants, if you need to go get keys cut, purchase flowers for something, doing anything. By spending $15, you have a chance that you can win by following their instructions for a $1,000 weekly draw. This is going until December the 8th. And then they have a grand prize of $1,500 at the end of it as well that you might be able to qualify for. So all the details for the draw are on their website, on Facebook or Instagram. So enjoy Uptown Saint John. And this Wednesday, October 30th, from 1:30 till 4:30, the Access SJ Symposium's taking place, and that's going to be happening at the Saint John Public Library in Market Square. So the Ability Advisory Committee is inviting people in hopes that everybody will attend. Accessible Transit was a great event that we went to just this past week. It was great, and great to see the new buses going out. And, it's really important that people stop using the word handy bus. There seems to be a little bit of confusion online about it, but accessible transit is the terms that we should be using, because actually the word handicap is derogatory. And so handicap back in the day was actually used as hand in cap, which was used to describe British soldiers that had no support from their government and had to resort to begging. So this is why the word is derogatory. So we need to adapt to the word accessibility. And so thank you very much to Saint John Transit for promoting Saint John Accessible Transit.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. I missed last Thursday's meeting due to work, so I missed the opportunity to congratulate former Councillor new MLA Hickey on his election win, along with our own Kate Wilcott from the city, Dr. John Dornan from out my way, and certainly also congratulations to Glenn Savoy on being reelected and to his new appointment as interim leader of the Progressive Conservative Party in New Brunswick. With the new MLAs and with Minister Savoy, former Minister Savoy, now being in the leadership role he is in, I am looking forward to good conversations about St. John, and certainly, a shout out to everybody and our own Councillor Killen who put their names forward and went into that arena, which is, we have a little bit of taste of, can be a tough road for everybody. So for everybody who put their name on the ballot, good for them. And if you happen to live uptown and want to do it again, December 9th, we're looking to fill an empty seat over there. And I am sure anybody from around the Horseshoe would be open to anybody who is interested having a conversation about what we do and the kind of things to expect when you get here. So we need good people. We need a good person to fill that seat. Looking forward to the conversations, and I'm sure there's lots of information available online if you want to put your name forward for December 9th by election.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Yes, I'll echo your congratulatory remarks for everyone from the election. It was an interesting night, and like you said, we'll have some good conversations now as well with our Glenn Savoy and his new position. All right, over to Councillor Harris, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple of items here. Pop back into the 80s with the Loch Lomond Villa Foundation. So there's a fun night coming up for the Loch Lomond Villa Foundation on November 7th at the Trade and Convention Center, Marco Polo Room. It's 80s themed night to raise money for the foundation. You can find your tickets on Eventbrite. So always a good night, always a fun time. Thank you, Tricia Hayes, for sending the invite to us. And if anybody wants more information, please feel free to reach out to me, or, like I said, check out Eventbrite, and you can find that Loch Lomond Villa Foundation ticket. As well as tomorrow on October 29th, around 10 a.m., starting at the Senior Resource Center in Brunswick Square, we have a CNIB campaign for accessible transit. I'm going to be at that and spending some time with the folks from the Canadian National Institutes for the Blind to kind of raise awareness around some new programs and talk about transit barriers. And yeah, we're actually going to get a chance to go on a transit ride and have a lunch. So that's happening tomorrow. And other than that, to Councillor Sullivan's point, though, I've already had 5 people message me and ask to have a conversation about this vacant seat. So there does seem to be a lot of people interested, but the timeline is tight. And so you got to have that paperwork filled out. You got to have 10 nominators for it submitted to Elections New Brunswick. The returning office is at Brunswick Square, where it was before, where former city manager Terry Totten will be there to give you a high five and let you know if you've gotten all of your paperwork filled out properly. So that's where it is, and that's the time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. And I believe the date is November 4th to 15th, I think, is
Yes, that's right.
right, that you have to have your paperwork in. Deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, just to piggyback on that, it's not just uptown. I've had 2 calls already saying whereabouts of the borders. So the Lower West Side and the East Side to the mall, I think it is, are included in that. So if you live anywhere in that area as well. So I was pleased to bring greetings from the City of Saint John to the 41st Annual Riverboat Classic at Thistle St. Andrews Curling Club. This year was especially special, I guess, for Thistle St. Andrews, as it was their 150th anniversary. And with a record-breaking 54 teams, including 10 from the U.S., 3 from Quebec, and 9 from Nova Scotia, it's clear that curling, which I know is Councillor Sullivan's big sport, is certainly thriving here. So I want to congratulate everybody on that. I will just touch again on the elections. Congratulations to Councillor Hickey and on his, and Dr. Dornan and Kate Wilcock and Glenn Savoy for all getting elected this time around and putting your names forward to all the candidates. All the best. The big one this weekend was the Menaquest Powwow. This gathering was a powerful celebration of Indigenous culture, honoring traditions, heritage, and community here in the Greater Saint John region. With dancing, drumming, music, vendors, and food, the powwow offered everyone a chance to learn about and connect with both traditional and contemporary Indigenous life. So I want to have a heartfelt thank you to Kateri and her team for putting this forward. It was a lot of work, and certainly it turned out really, really well. So I want to end on that note. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy. It was a great weekend. Councillor Norton?
Thank you, Your Worship. Big congratulations to the residents of the City of Saint John and all those involved with the opening of or the extension of Harbour Passage. Toli Makahamek is it's longer, it's better, it's I guess it's bigger and better. So get out there and enjoy it. And whether you're walking or whether you're using your bike, there's an opportunity there as we become more active and cleaner and greener in all the right ways. And with that, interesting thing is some of our bike lanes become bigger. There's an opportunity through Saint John Energy to finance your power bill an electric bike. I think you can get $500 rebate through them. And the application's right on the Saint John Energy webpage. So cool opportunity if you're looking to get out and experience some of our trails. Also this week, the City of Saint John invites residents to attend the zoning bylaw reform open house, Shape Your City. So if you're interested in things that are happening in your neighborhood as it relates to zoning bylaw, this is an important one. Land issues that come up are probably some of the most contentious things that this council faces. And it's one of the most divisive things that can sometimes happen in neighborhoods as well. So here's an opportunity to have your input, learn a little bit about what goes into zoning and all those things in terms of land use. And it's one of the reasons why municipal governments exist. And it's this week, 6 to 8. All the information's on the City of Saint John webpage. And I'd be amiss if I didn't say congratulations to MLA-elect David Hickey. And ministerial appointments are yet to be made. So we're looking forward maybe to an opportunity to change that to minister. But we'll just put that out there to the powers that be. But congratulations, David, and Councillor Killen that put her name in as well, and all those in the City of Saint John that had the courage to put their name forward. It's good, and we're better for it. So congratulations and thank you. Over to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lowe.
To piggyback on Brent and John, the nominations got to be in by the 15th, and they got to have 10 names from people from the riding. And without that, they could be disqualified. So that's the important part. And you said you had 5. I'm up to 9 now. People that are interested in the riding.
Excellent. Should be an interesting then. And I will say that Ward 3 goes from the south all the way west, goes west to City Line, and it goes east to McAllister Drive. So it's a big ward. It's a complex ward. It's got everything in it. So it's a great ward, though, because it's 3 of the priority neighborhoods in it, too. But so anyways, I'm happy to hear that we've got 9 people that have spoken to you about it. That's great. Okay, that's it. I'll just quickly mention the powwow was fantastic this weekend. The vendors were pleased. The Double Curve Media was pleased. They figured they had somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 people in and out on Saturday, and a little bit less than that on Sunday. It was amazing if you were on site. The drummers were wonderful, and they were going to cut one of their live albums at TD Station. So that was impressive as well. It was, and then I got myself these earrings while I was there. And I did want to mention that when you go to a powwow or to any place that sells authentic crafts done by the juried members of the group, then you're supporting those members and those craftspeople, and then you should be wearing and whatever you buy, wear it proudly, because it also generates some conversation. So, a few people have said, where'd you get these earrings? I have an opportunity to talk about the powwow, to talk about Indigenous culture. It gives it a profile. So it's a good thing. I know people are always like, should I buy it? Should I wear it? Yes, you should buy it as a non-Indigenous person, and you should wear it, and you should talk about it. So it was a really great weekend. I wanted to...
Your Worship?
Hello?
Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to let you know. That's okay. I have my hand up whenever you're done.
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry, Councillor Killen. I didn't see your hand up there. The other couple of things that I wanted to mention is that, yes, the new component of Harbor Passage is fantastic. It's an area that you've really never had an opportunity to walk on before because it was Coast Guard property. But when you walk along it, you are looking directly at the bow of those huge ships. So it's a really fantastic perspective. And you'll see a little bit of history along that walk. You'll see the names of some of the slips that date from the original slips that date from 1875. There's gathering spaces there for small groups. It gets all the Western light in the afternoon. So it's an amazing space, and you're right on the ground with all the work that's being done. And somehow you feel like you're part of really watching that whole development at Fundy Key, move along. So that's been fantastic. Congratulations again to Councillor Hickey and to everyone who put their names in. It is a courageous journey to do it. But now we've got Hickey at the helm over there. And I say Hickey for housing. So I've got that on my hashtag there, Hickey. We're trying to get you in there because we're going to hold your feet to the fire when you get it. Well, I went to the long service awards for fire this week, and I just wanted to mention that Trevor Tompkins, Melanie's husband, had gotten his 30-year award, being on the service for 30 years. It's hard to believe, but it was. So congratulations to both of you for that. Fire is an interesting career. It's changed over time. When houses today burn, and Councillor Harris would know more about this because he's involved with new materials probably more than anybody here, but there's a lot of laminated woods. Things are made with resins and glues. It's a different type of fire. It can be more toxic, I guess I'll say. At the end of the day, it burns faster. And every day a firefighter leaves home, everybody in the family knows there's a risk that something could go terribly wrong. So that's something that you live with every day. And it's a group, I always say, that rushes to danger, where really you're designed in your mechanisms it's the fight or flee, and mostly we flee when it's danger. So I wanted to bring that forward. And the only other news, I guess, that I have from the staff here is that I want to say congratulations to Jacqueline Boucher. Where is she? Is she with us tonight? She got engaged over the weekend. Her fiance took her up to Rockwood Park, and she got engaged on the weekend. So that's a nice for her. So that's it for me. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Councillor Killen and Beatrix, who are on the screen up there.
Yes, I'm not sure if you all can see me or not, but I do. This is my tiny little reason for missing a couple of meetings. She's exactly 1 month old today, so it's crazy how fast a month goes. So apologies for not being in attendance, and I appreciate everyone's kind words about the election. It was one of the craziest experiences of my life to do this run for office and then also have a baby at the same time. So I appreciate everyone's kindness. And I want to show off this beautiful scarf that I got from Katiri's sister, actually, who was one of the vendors. Oh, there she is. Who was one of the vendors at this weekend at the powwow, which was one of the most magnificent experiences that I think I've ever had in St. John. They really showed up and showed how beautiful our community is together, understanding Indigenous culture and really soaking it in. So I so appreciate everyone who put that together and allowed us to participate in the intertribal dance. So it was pretty incredible, and I'm glad to be back here and can't wait to be back in person. So thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, next City Clerk, I'll pass it over to you for the next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next, we have a presentation, item 8.2 on the agenda, and it's Envision Saint John, and CEO Andrew Beckett is here to present.
Andrew, welcome. Oh, hang on, we just have to get the mic on. There you go.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors. Pleasure to be here this evening. Part of a roadshow that I'm doing around to all the region's councils over the next month and a half. Everybody meets on the same night. Makes it very tough to get around sometimes. What I want to do is run through a few highlights very, very quickly. Quite frankly, my main interest is hearing your questions because it's a chance to find out what's important to you and make sure that we're being responsive to council's needs. Again, any opportunity I've got to speak to the agency since we're at the tail end of year 4, but still there's questions sometimes in terms of what we do. We're an agency that is very focused on growth, that we bring people and partners together to accelerate growth. We help create successful strategies and a thriving ecosystem that attracts and sustains investment in the region. We're not trying to be the smartest people in the room. We're trying to bring together those smart people to figure out how we address complex issues in the interest of growing the region. In terms of specifics, though, we do have a few areas where we are specifically involved in key areas of service delivery that are important in terms of that growth agenda. Real estate and development would be one that's quite familiar to councillors. We do try and have our team members in front of council wherever we can in terms of different applications that come forward. We're supporting 40-plus developers with about the latest numbers, I think about 70 different projects that those developers are involved in that we're providing ongoing support. I would say, just as a caveat, we've got 2 staff people in this area directly on. It's not possible for us to be at every public hearing, at every council meeting where things come up. We do work with your team in terms of, and the developers, to find out where we can add the most value in terms of being present. And so we try and make sure that we've got people here when there's items that are of sensitivity. But again, we've got 7 different municipal units that we deal with, and we're stretched pretty thin at times in terms of getting around and being supportive. But on a sensitivity basis, we do try and get to the meetings where there's sensitive items being in place. Economic intelligence, that's the service that provides some of the data supports. The most visible part of that is the dashboard that we have on site in terms of key data for the region. We're the region's destination marketing and sales organization, pretty well-established, well-heeled part of the operation that's been doing that for some 14, 15 years now. We just won an award actually from the Economic Development Association of Canada for our most recent campaign, which was nice to get that national recognition for some of the work that group's doing. A lot of work around population growth, particularly around immigration. I'll come back to that a little later on because I think we've got to put an asterisk of concern around immigration at the present time and what that could mean to our future growth over the next several years. Entrepreneurship and business growth, again, small group, but a very active area in terms of supporting local entrepreneurs. We'll exceed 200 individuals that have come through the door this year in terms of seeking support and direction in terms of either building or starting up a business. The Impact Loan Program that we operate on behalf of the City of Saint John, we've already exceeded last year's numbers in terms of approvals through that. I think we're sitting at about 14, 15, and there's another 3 applications being considered next week. So I think we'll probably come close to 20 applications that have been successful through that program. So quite successful in that. And workforce development, doing a lot of work with a lot of different community partners in terms of looking for ways to really help develop the workforce, promote local opportunities for youth so that we can retain more youth in the local community, and so a variety of different activities that we've got on. Some of the more visible things you'll have seen there recently, a couple of job fairs that we've done where we've brought together local employers and job seekers to try and generate interest in local opportunities, and we've had some good success through that. That's a very quick snapshot. I would say that I could spend the entire time and a lot more in terms of just going through the activities. I provided to you in the presentation the QR code and link to our website. We provide quarterly updates in terms of the activities that we're involved in. The most recent quarterly update for the end of September is available online, and it's 9 pages long, just bullet form. But it speaks to the range of things of activities that we're involved in, and encourage you to take a look at that. And if you've got questions on any aspects of it, certainly we're happy and available at any point in time to address those. The next piece I wanted to just quickly run through is over the past 8 or 9 months, we've been working with the community and a consultant to develop a regional economic development strategy and also a regional tourism master plan. These are plans that have been developed. They are regional plans. This is not the agency's plan. This is a plan for the region, and it's drawn from the sort of strengths of the community, but also taking a broader look in terms of where the opportunities are on a global stage. A lot of consultation through this. We had steering committees associated with each of the studies, made up of about 10 to 15 people that were part of the steering committees. We did surveys through the process. We had about 1,500 responses to surveys from local businesses, community leaders, visitors that responded to surveys. We did a series of roundtables, one-on-one interviews, a couple of workshops that helped inform and develop the plan. So I wanted to very quickly run through the priorities that came out of that. Both of these plans, that QR code that was in the earlier presentation, will take you to the page that has both of those plans on it. I would encourage you to go through the plans. I think they're well researched. They're well grounded in terms of setting the stage for what we're trying to do. So again, tonight I'm just going to quickly touch on some of the priorities that came out of it. So in terms of the economic development plan, we heard loud and clear from the community, and also in recognition of the global investments that are being made, that we have an opportunity to lead Atlantic Canada's energy transition. The region will drive innovation and investment in sustainable energy technologies and infrastructure, as well as readying its workforce. So we see a huge amount of global investment taking place in the clean energy space. We've got some great assets here already. We've got in the utility space, having Saint John Energy and the innovation that they're showing is also a great asset to put into this. And we're also seeing an awful lot of interest in foreign direct investment in the clean energy space that we think Saint John is really well positioned for, and an opportunity to capitalize that. All while at the same time, we have to keep in mind that the requirements from the workforce are changing. And so we've got to make sure that people aren't left behind in this process, that we're providing opportunities for retraining and evolution of the workforce so that people can take advantage of those opportunities as they come in. We want to leverage the Port of Saint John as a catalyst for investment. A lot of people, it was an interesting part of the research associated with this planning side to see the numbers associated with the growth in employment in the maritime sector, maritime, not maritime provinces, but maritime and marine related. It was one of the most significant areas of growth that we've seen over the last number of years, and a significant number of jobs in that, but a lot more opportunities. So we want to maximize the Port of St. John's potential to attract and grow diverse economic opportunities. So one of the things that we're looking at right now is the possibility of establishment of an inland port to support the port's activities that present some other opportunities in terms of warehousing and light manufacturing that could go along with that. But we think there's other ways to take advantage of that volume of cargo that's coming through the port and try and make some of it sticky so that we can create some increased number of job opportunities in the region. We see health and technology as a great opportunity as well. We've got an amazing cluster at the Tucker Park area that is something interesting to build on with University of New Brunswick St. John with its integrated health initiative. We've got DalMed there. We've got the NBCC with the allied health side of things. We've got Horizon Health there. We're trying to pull together all of those partners and say, okay, how do we really capitalize on that brain power in terms of looking for innovation in the healthcare space and also creating some export opportunities that could go along with that. So we see that as a significant opportunity moving forward as well. We want to cultivate a renowned destination for residents and visitors. I'll touch on that a little bit more when we get to the tourism master plan because we've taken a deeper dive on that given our role as the destination marketing organization. So we've got a little bit more direction in terms of where we're going on it. We're also looking to strengthen the region's workforce development ecosystem. The region will cultivate a skilled, adaptable workforce to meet evolving industry needs and opportunities. So again, spoke to that in relation to clean energy, but we're seeing this in all of our different sectors that there's a changing because of introduction of new technologies and other aspects that are coming in the workplace, an increased need to look at the changing needs within the workplace. And finally, we want to position St. John as a region the region as a place for investment, and that's focusing on existing businesses that are here and also attracting new. But we don't want to lose sight of those existing businesses. So as an example, we had a meeting last week where we're pulling together a lot of different government organizations and others that are involved in outreach to local businesses to see how we can be more coordinated in terms of helping provide supports to local businesses as they grow and expand. Because we know over the long term, every now and then you get the home run, you'll attract a large business here, but a lot of our growth is going to come from existing businesses. So we're launching a more coordinated, collaborative business retention and expansion program. So there are the 6 key areas that came out of the economic development plan. I would say it was interesting to sit through the presentations from the party leaders that they made to council and to look at council's priorities that you put forward on the provincial agenda. I think the priorities that came out of this strategic planning exercise align very well with the interest that council has put forward, and I think there's a good correlation to council's priorities in terms of the priorities that came from the community in terms of this regional plan. Switching gears to the tourism master plan, we had 8 areas that came out of it. We want to advance the St. John region's infrastructure, a couple of things that specifics, recognizing the importance and visibility of the cruise side of things and looking for ways to build on the cruise industry. Airport came up both in the economic development plan and in the tourism master plan as a significant concern in terms of looking for ways that we can support the continued growth of the airport. Cycling, interestingly, came up, and I think probably no surprise to councillors. We did hear for loud and clear that people want more cycling options around the city. The other one that I found interesting was the importance of wayfinding, that we heard from a lot of residents and visitors that it can be tough to find things at times, that the wayfinding's not as good as it could be for a lot of things. So we want to take a look at ways to enhance that. Under enhancing tourist attractions, things like the New Brunswick Museum, we've got a tremendous opportunity with the investment that's being made to expand and reopen the New Brunswick Museum, making sure that that's on everybody's radar screen in terms of really promoting that as an increased destination opportunity. But it's also the plan also pointed out things like, and this is not new because going back to my city days, this has been talked about for decades, really trying to figure out what Reversing Falls Rapids is as a visitor attraction. It's a bit of and I know it's been looked at, but again, it's a recognition that it's an opportunity, but we need to do more with it. Expand outdoor recreation. The fact that we've got the number of UNESCO designated sites that we have in this region, and the federal government are looking at linking together, I think there's 14 UNESCO sites in the maritime area that they're trying to link together in terms of an overall sort of path to tourism. We think there's a great opportunity for this region to build on it. But actually, mountain biking came out in the expanding outdoor recreation as a great opportunity. Cultivating our urban culture. The authenticity and significance of the history of the uptown area came out loud and clear in terms of the tourism master plan, and really looking for ways that we can build on that. Expanding culinary tourism was recognized as a great opportunity, given the breadth of and variety of restaurants that we've got, and increasing opportunities in that. Growing festivals and events, particularly in the shoulder seasons, looking at trying to expand the season into maybe more wintertime activities and different ways to try and expand the season, both for residents but also for visitors to increase those opportunities. We want to continue to monitor the diversity of accommodations that are available, because we know it's important to have a broad range of accommodation options. Elevate the visitor experience. The interesting one for me that came out on that was consistently through is recognizing the digital world we're in and making sure that we've got a good variety of ways for people to access what we have here through a digital lens. So we're going to be taking a look at that a lot more. And an overall backdrop in terms of a commitment to stewardship, that we want to commit to environmental stewardship, reconciliation, and sustainable practices throughout the tourism sector, and so something that we want to continue to build on. So they're the two plans. Like I said, they're available online. Would encourage you to go through them. There's an extensive amount of support material that went along with both plans. It fills a very thick binder. If you've got any questions in relation to any of those items, certainly happy to have you come in and take a look at some of the other background information as you might be interested. Looking forward to a few things. We are now, with these plans done, with the agencies entering into year 5, it's time to revisit our strategic plan. The first plan that was done for the agency was done in a rush in the first 6 months that it was formed. I think we've learned a lot more about what we do and how we do it, and where we're falling short, where there's opportunities for improvement. So we want to really examine that. So we've just launched a new strategic planning exercise for the agency that we want to have complete by June of next year. Included in that will be outreach to all the municipal units. CAO may have gotten an introductory email today on that side of things, but we do want to hear from all of the municipal units in terms of areas where we need to address things that we're doing well, things that need improvement, things that we're not doing, so that we can address that as part of the strategic planning process. We're also working on a regional immigration strategy. I would say it's an interesting time to develop a strategy where I would say the backdrop is changing significantly. Last week's announcements from the federal government in terms of what I would say is a dramatic decrease in terms of the immigration numbers are in some ways understandable, given the challenges that we're facing on the housing side and healthcare side. But in terms of population growth, talent that we need for our local workforce, it is a major concern. We could actually see over the next few years a period of population decline at a time where we need to be growing our population. I, for one, think that it actually could hurt the housing side of things rather than help the housing side of things, because I think it's going to scare some developers away from building housing that we need at this point in time. So I would say collectively it's something that we need to be watching very closely and voicing some concerns. But some of the projected numbers for the maritime provinces, some have been projected at an extreme cut in terms of the immigrants that could be coming here. And it's at a time when, like I said, we need the talent in terms of supporting our local workforce. We're also, I mentioned that we're launching a business retention and expansion program. And we're finally, I want to spend just a couple of minutes on the fact that we are developing a bid for the 2029 Canada Games in partnership with the City of Moncton. And actually it'll be the larger part of the Moncton region is going to be involved in it. So as a backdrop on it, the Canada Games is it's held every 2 years, so Winter Games and then Summer Games. Summer Games were last hosted here in 1985. This is an event that attracts about 4,600 participants competing over 18 days. in 17 to 20 sports, and it requires about 5,000 volunteers, 5,000 plus volunteers. It's a big event. The operating budget is somewhere in the order of about $35 million for the games, and so it's a significant opportunity. The economic impact, there's been several studies done at past venues that see the economic impact in excess of $200 million for the province and for the host communities. So it's got a significant boost for it. This would be held in, the dates aren't official yet, but it will be in the tail end of July, early part of August of 2029. Certainly could expect that during that time we'll be filling every hotel room that's available and a lot of surrounding accommodations. The commitments that are there from the municipality standpoint, and again, we're approaching this from a regional bid standpoint for the Saint John region, but just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear in terms of the commitments, and if you've got any questions on this, I'd be happy to address them. The municipal units of the host communities are responsible for any financial deficit associated, both capital and operating, associated with hosting the games. That is something that there is a host community, there's a bid committee that's overseeing this process right now that's going through a very careful due diligence around the financial side of things. The games have got a long-standing history of actually generating a surplus. We see no reason why that couldn't possibly be the same case here, but we are doing our due diligence around the budget side to make sure that the risk associated with a financial deficit is minimal. The municipalities have to agree to contribute at least $3 million to capital expenditures. So again, that would be split $1.5 million from the Saint John region, $1.5 million from the Moncton region. Confirm any additional financial commitments in cash or value in kind towards capital or operating. We are seeking $2 million from each of the Saint John region and the City of Moncton. This would be payable over a 4-year period. The 500,000 of the money that's going to be from the Saint John region is associated with the host fee that's associated with hosting the games. Envision Saint John will be contributing that amount out of our accumulated surplus, so it's another $1.5 million that will come from the region's municipalities. I think they're the key financial side of things, but again, we also have to adhere to the delivery requirements of the games. It's about a 45-page document that has all the different requirements of it, and we're going through that. So the bid committee is co-chaired by Bill McMacken locally and Louis Legier in Moncton. They've been working through the process, and the bid has to be submitted by the end of January of next year. So we're certainly hopeful by that point in time that we'll have all the ducks in a row and have a very positive bid for the province moving forward. That's all I've got.
Perfect.
And
I've got some questions here for you then, if you don't mind. Councillor Harris is up first, so I'll send it over to you, Councillor.
Thank you for being here, Andrew. This is, it's light years ahead of where the organization started 5 years ago when we were here, and kind of a number of us around this circle had some issues with that rushed strategic plan. This is far more precise and direct, and I appreciate it. Couple of things. I guess I would encourage you with a counter narrative about the alarm that you expressed to the federal government's immigration numbers. I've heard it said by others, in the economic profile, but as well as from developers, that, in a low immigration environment, it is sort of one of these emerging rules that business follows people, not the other way around. We do have a significant opportunity to be a land and development market that will continue to benefit from interprovincial migration, which isn't going to wear off anytime soon. When you've got someone who can sell their condo for $650,000 in Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal or any of these really hot markets, work remotely or get a decent paying job here that is in demand, with our low unemployment level there is, and the headhunting that is happening by some of these local industries you talked about, I think we're in good positioning. Where we need the help is where I'll go to next, which you talked about workforce expansion. The Job Developer Network initiative that you have, that Daniel Rito's running, I think is a good one, but I'll mention this. There is need for some precision that doesn't exist there. And I'm not suggesting that Daniel's not doing a great job, because I think he is. But I've seen a number of different groups, Outflow, BLM, Joshua Group, even our initiative at the Tool Library around Sawhorse and Hammers to Homes, around these training programs that are trying to help build capacity in the construction sector to take people, retrain them, or just train them, depending on where they're coming from, so that they're effective in the construction industry, so that we can supply the workforce needed. There's nobody quarterbacking that. Pedal is very passive. They're very receptive to ideas, but it unavoidably ends up with a lot of haphazard activity that isn't well organized. And it's not that people aren't all trying to solve what we see as the problem, which is contractors don't have anybody they can hire that can read a tape or, weld with a TIG or a MIG, like any of these missing links quickly. So there's a bunch of us in that sector, and I do think there's an opportunity for that initiative of yours, in the Job Developer Network specifically, to help quarterback some of that and to say, hey, we've got some assets here that can really mobilize people into the workforce quickly, but we need to help move some barriers that are there. Just an idea, and then final plug, social enterprise development. And the only reason I point to that one is because the city does have a social procurement strategy. The city is ready and willing to start, supporting local businesses that produce the things we need to buy anyway at the local market. So you talk about unpacking some of these crates and figuring out what we can produce locally. There is a buyer for it now, and that is the city. We will put money into a local market provider. And that is something other cities don't have, and it gives us an advantage to a local entrepreneur. But again, there's no fund available to help start those sort of businesses. So it's something I know Kevin and his team did a lot of work on to get us in a place where we sort of had the list of things that we want to be preferential on and can be preferential on with our trade agreements, but still don't really have anybody helping seed those new companies. Anyway, that's a lot. I'm over time. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me go 47 seconds there.
That's fine.
The only thing I would comment on in relation to some very good points, Councillor. I absolutely agree in terms of the interprovincial migration. It's accounted for about half of our growth. We do see a significant opportunity there continuing, and also the potential to be the second point of entry for immigrants that may go to a Toronto and find it's not their thing, and still have an opportunity on that. So it is an area that we're going to be more focused on from that standpoint. Absolutely see some significant potential there. But thanks for your other points too.
Thank you. Councillor Ogden's up next.
Yeah, going to the Canada Games. When we built the Canada Games Stadium, I was just a volunteer. The city owned it. So then a number of years later, when it was turned over to UNB, they didn't invest any money into it. So it was condemned for 2 years. I headed up and started the $8.5 million refurbishment and enlargement. So we actually have a stadium that's actually bigger than we had at the time, because we took the soil out, we put a berm on the other side, which is more seating, and then we took the throwing events and we built a field over here, and then now we have an artificial field so that you don't get rained out or anything. What I'm afraid of is if we reinvest into that stadium, we're investing into somebody else's institution, and we will have no control of that. And the history is that UNB allowed that place to become condemned and closed for 2 years. And I know a lot of staff members over the years, because I was chair of Parks and Recreation, said it was a major mistake that the city did, was to give that stadium away, because we don't control a lot of things about it now. But we invested in it, and then we had to invest in it the second time because it was condemned and closed. So I think you should really keep council aware of everything that's going into that stadium, because we're going to be asked to put money into something that had already been condemned and closed and wasn't taken care of. So I think for the taxpayers of St. John should know that we could be putting something in that that could come back and bite us. So the taxpayers should be very aware of any money going into the Canada Games Stadium because of its history. Okay, so as from the taxpayers' point of view, we don't want to be wasting money. I see some smiling faces here, but you know, at the time, that stadium was condemned and closed, and the staff that I was working with the city were really upset that we'd ever given it away, and it came back to bite us. So I don't want that to happen again. Stadium's probably worth $25 million, and it was a bad call on the city to give that away, and now we don't have control out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think the Councillor makes some good points in fact that, you know, as we go forward, we've certainly learned from things. We have better relationships with our partners. You know, they're more, we have more criteria in a contract, et cetera. So, you know, going forward, I know you'll look after that for us and you look after our interest,
Look,
absolutely.
it's a fair concern, but I do think the backdrop of the games is a chance to reinvest in some of those facilities. The stadium requires a little bit, actually, in terms of the technical review. Fortunately, because of some of the upgrades, it's not in bad shape right now. The aquatic center, I think, is the big opportunity.
Right.
I think one of the wins we've got at this point in time, because it's a joint bid with Moncton, is we're going to have one 50-meter pool in the province.
Yeah.
That, to me, is a big win.
Sounds good.
But we want to make sure it's a really good 50-meter pool.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Councillor Sullivan, I'll go to you next.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Andrew. A short point. You mentioned just about your two staff in real estate and so arriving for sensitive items and you can't be here for everything. I certainly understand that. But I do sit here for PAC and council, so I do get to see the opportunities. A suggestion I would make, it does stand out when staff from Envision come sit through an entire evening where there might be 3 or 4 different proposals come forward, and then the staff comes forward on the sensitive one and doesn't. If they're here, they should make an opportunity to meet the folks, the small investments. There are more small investments happening in the city that help us out as well. So it wouldn't hurt to take 2 seconds if Envision is here and wave the flag for the small mom and pops as much as they do for the big investors. So I'll throw that out. A lot of the goals that you put forward certainly are Envision specialty related, but there are a few things in here that I hope you don't leave us out as municipal councils in the region. Like I look at the goal to position Saint John region as a place for investment. You know, it's a little broader than the port. And do you have one now, an elevator pitch that you can share with us, or something in your mind that when it's developed, it's shared with council so that we are all sharing that same elevator pitch? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I think you're going to see that some of those key messages coming out before too long. We're actually looking at some of that to make sure that we're arming everybody in terms of being part of that growth for the region. We've got some great assets to build on. So yeah, we want everybody to have those summary messages. So yes, we'll be coming forward.
And I would suggest investing some time in the thoughts of how we share that message with the folks who are going to share that message. Don't just send us an email that says, here's the messages, let's share them. Like you're here quarterly now, but you know, when that message comes out, maybe it's a time for another visit.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
that we're
And look, I would say in that regard too, I've been speaking with Mr. McGovern too on this, that we want to, as much as I come here once a year to council, we want to be a regular player on the growth committee agenda. That we think there's a great opportunity. There's a number of areas that we could and should be spending more time updating the city on, and we think the growth committee is a good vehicle to do that. So I'm hoping, I expect that you're going to see us be more visible in some of those regards.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Radbourne, over to you.
You, Mayor. Yeah, and CAO McGovern's nodding his head, so that's good. Those were great points that Councillor Sullivan made, and I think the big thing is, as a region, we're all growing, and as the port grows, everybody grows. So I have a couple of questions, but I first wanted to congratulate you because you've really built quite a amazing group that you've added on to since you've been at Envision and diversified the workforce, and it's incredible some of the skill set that you have there now that you've added, which is great.
They're a great team, and I was mentioned to you before the meeting, I'm very proud of the fact that we can service clientele in 6 different languages now.
There you go.
Which speaks to the diversity of the team as well. So.
That's great. So I have a couple of questions. I'm wondering, what is Envision doing to get more people working in construction? Because obviously there's a gap there. I'm also wondering if you're trying to bring in new developers from outside the city and how that's going. And I'm wondering if you have any insight on what can be done with vacant malls. Because I know this has been a huge challenge for decades. And the only other question I have is if there's any barriers that you're facing that you think that council and the city can help you with.
Well, just easy topics for tonight. We're going to solve the problems of the world. So on the construction side of things, look, we're actively involved with a variety of different players in terms of trying to develop the construction side. We know the shortages that are there. That's everything from working with current developers in terms of how they're doing it, running career opportunities for middle school and high school students in terms of looking at, we last year we participated with the province, and I forget what the number was. I think it was about 800 high school students that we took out to MBCC to introduce them to the trades. And so we do that on an ongoing basis and looking at ways that we can promote that. So, and also working with the Construction Association and different ways to promote those opportunities. So it's an ongoing piece of work that we do have attention to. In terms of new developers, I'm actually quite proud of the work that's being done by the team in terms of identifying the potential for new developers. I think city staff can attest to the number of expressions of interest that are coming from new developers. They've not always been successful for good reasons, not questioning that at all, but we have had new developers expressing an interest in putting in proposals on projects in the city. And that continues to be the case. We're working with 2 or 3 others at this point in time. So we're seeing some good interest from developers that have not been in this area before that we think present a good opportunity and continue to work on. But that's everything from that to the other one that fascinates me, and I give them a hard time on it all the time because I accuse them of ambulance chasing a bit. Looking for available land to develop. No secret to this group. We're blessed with land, but a lot of it is rock and swamp. So trying to find good developable land. So one of the initiatives just recently that they've been working on is approaching churches on surplus property that they've got. And they're having some pretty good success with it. We fully expect that there's going to be several fairly significant pieces of land that are going to come through that process. So again, a very active group in terms of working with new developers, but also looking at development opportunities. Vacant malls, I wish I had a quick and easy answer to that one. I don't know. I mean, the whole retail landscape has changed significantly from that standpoint. People's shopping patterns have changed. It needs a rethink in terms of what some of those spaces are. Brunswick Square, in an ideal world, I'd wave my magic wand and have a lot of post-secondary students in a space like that. But it needs a rethink in terms of what that space is or what it could be. I'm hoping that the property is up for sale. I'm hoping that we're going to see some imagination come to the fore in terms of what it could be. I don't know at this point in time, but it's got a great locational advantage, but urban malls and malls generally they're suffering everywhere.
I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but some people say that it's pretty much used as a tax write-off in some cases. And so I do wonder if there's some sort of federal governance or provincial that needs to happen. But anyway, just throwing that out there, maybe when you're having discussions. Yeah, I don't know if that's something that could come up.
You asked about barriers too. I would say, and it's actually interesting, I'm not going to get into bashing other areas. The region's come a long way in terms of representing itself as a region, which I think is really powerful. We need to use our collective voice more. So in terms of some of the things that we're going after, and I think during the election, council did a good job in terms of the items that we put forward, but we can't leave it to just election time. We need to be in Fredericton more often. We need to be in front of politicians more, the federal politicians more. As a region, we need to be more vocal about what some of the needs are, because in terms of growing the economy of this province and the Maritimes, Saint John is where it's going to happen. We have significant opportunities, but we need some support, we need some help, and I think we've got to be very loud and not be afraid to be very loud in terms of what our requirements are to support that type of growth.
Thanks for the answers, Mr. Beckett. I have full confidence that you can change the region, so thank you.
Councillor Lowe, and then I got the deputy, and then back to Councillor Ogden.
Getting back to PAC, he's 100% right. I sit on it too, and I'll go back to 3 or 4 meetings ago, and there was 3 developers. One was providing more affordable housing, and the other two, he spoke about one of the other ones, never spoke for the other 2 whatsoever. And it's so important when you're sitting here. But I want to talk about tourism. Are you in charge of tourism?
We're in charge of tourism promotion, not necessarily the tourism
The
industry.
Reversing Falls.
No, we're not responsible for.
So who's in charge of the rivers and falls?
That's a good question. I would say probably.
I mean, we get people walking Chesley Drive every time there's a boat in. They get there and there's absolutely nothing there. Absolutely nothing. And, you know, like for a guy in the cab industry where I was before, then I want to talk about Water Street and the tourism that gets off the boats. Have you got anything to do with that?
Again, we work with, I mean, a lot of what you've mentioned, again, I'd say reversing falls, I think it's actually falls, a lot of it falls to the city of St. John in terms of the reversing falls. In Water Street, again, we have a role to play in terms of with the port, with the city and others in terms of how we make use of those.
Well, Water Street, when the boats are in, it's a zoo.
Yep.
It's a zoo that the people are being charged, they're being overcharged, unbelievable. To go to the falls, to go to St. Martin's, to go anywhere. There's people down there with ordinary cars, no H plates, no nothing, picking up passengers. There's absolutely no control whatsoever. They come out, the people come off a boat, they're met by 15, 20 people with signs hollering and screaming at them. And some, they walk them across the street and they put them in a cab. They have no idea who they are. They don't have H plates. I mean, I know this. I watch it all the time. And the charges that these people are being charged, I know for a fact that one outfit drove the people around for about a half an hour and charged $150 to go to the falls. These are tourism that we want to come back. We want them to come back again. We want them to drive up here, or fly up here, or come back again. The whole scenario of Water Street when the boats are in is a total disgrace.
I'll certainly bring those forward to the cruise partnership that we have with the port and a lot of the local operators just to see what can be done on that.
And possibly, if you're going to do something about it, it would be the port, the city of St. John for sure, i.e. policing it properly, and yourselves. I mean, the greatest amount of tourism come off these boats. And we're treating them, well, we're robbing from them is what we're doing.
Thank you, Councillor. I will say that I've cruised and you buy your tours on the boat. They're not cheap. And so when you walk off the boat, you have that option of taking something that's there or passing it up or whatever you want to do. So I guess in some ways I see that as free enterprise. But, I mean, we'll leave that into your hands to figure out what you want to do with
It's fair
it.
to look at it in terms of the overall sort of coordination of the traffic there and the link.
Yeah, exactly. City Manager,
Your Worship,
CEO.
I would offer that as part of our budget that we are going to be bringing forward for 2025, we do have an element of taxi by law enforcement in there because we realize and recognize that it's an issue and it needs attention. And so we do need to bring resources forward to attend to that. So that will be as part of our 2025 budget.
Thank you. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Second time this week, Andrew. You did a great job with the Fundy Region presentation. So when we're talking about vacant lands, do you have anybody that reaches out to landowners to see if they have any plans? Because Lansdowne Avenue, where St. John, or the old Sears used to be.
Yeah, I know exactly where you mean.
Yeah.
And that is a site that we are working on actively. That's actually, Mr. McGovern and I have talked about that one as well, and our team are involved in it.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that because, with, and I think you said 40 developers you deal with now on 70 different projects. I mean, that's unheard of. That's awesome.
There's a huge amount of interest. I mean, challenges, but there's a huge amount of interest in development.
It's that interest from outside that want to come to St. John that's encouraging, right? And I want to say too that, you're doing a great job, in my opinion, with the negotiations for the bid for the Canada game. When we talk about a province the size of New Brunswick, having Moncton and St. John partner together, that's no easy task. And I think you're doing an awesome job working with Moncton and trying to pull this thing together. We're a very small province when it comes to population. And if we don't work together in regions and as a province, we're not going to go very far. So I want to congratulate you on that. And you want to be part of the Growth Committee? Welcome. We'd love to have you come in as Maybe not every month, but whenever you want to come in, you're
We
welcome.
we see probably 3 or 4 times a year where
Excellent.
we've got some targeted things that we want to engage more with
Love to have you.
councillors on.
Thanks, Andrew.
Councillor Radwan, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to quickly mention, I think that Cruise Saint John is still active, if I'm not mistaken. Do you have any idea, Andrew?
Sorry, which?
Cruise Saint John, Cruise SJ. So one thing that they do is they have a lot of people that will greet people off the cruise ships. And I know Councillor Ogden goes quite a bit, but I've gone a couple times on cruise ships and some people are just kind of flying out of there, right? So some people are probably engaging with them. Some of them might not be. There is information on the cruise ships. I know that they also had advertisements on the cruise ships. The small businesses uptown used to be able to go and put advertisements on there as well. So there's some communication right on the cruise ship, but anyway, it might be a good idea to have a more detailed discussion about what they're doing, but that's something that they've traditionally done, and they do a pretty good job of it. There's a lot of...
I think, look, we're a very well-respected destination from that standpoint. With the
And it doesn't-
ambassadors program that's there and the like, that there's a lot, but look, there's always ways to improve too, so we can take some of those comments back to the committee for consideration.
Well, I should mention that your ambassador program that trains people is incredible. And me being in dining, my staff do it every year because they always get some tips on where they could send people to do different things. So anyway, it's really great. And it's trying to get the message out there that the door is always open. But that's not that easy to always get across to tourists, but at least everybody's got the same train of thought that the door is open. You can ask questions anytime. So thank you.
All right, Andrew, I guess that's it. But I will say thank you for being here. A lot of good information, gave us all an opportunity to have a little bit of a chat with you, bring forward some of our concerns. I will say on the cruising, when the ships are in, the city is hopping and it's fantastic. I love it. And I live uptown. I really do like it because it changes our city a lot. And it just adds another dynamic on cruise ship days. We have that for the summer, so it's been good. I recently met with the port and Aquila, and the feedback that they get from the cruisers is St. John is fantastic. Love it. So I just want to get that out there that this is a great destination. People do love it. We have the data that, proves that. It's not anecdotal. I'm saying I think, people like it. We know that. We know it's coming back on the feedback from the cruisers. So that's really great. And it is good to have you here tonight. Appreciate you being here. And, sorry. Councillor Killen. Councillor Killen, I'm forgetting about you up in the gallery up there. I'm going to turn that over to Councillor Killen to finish us off. She's probably gone to sleep with me yakking on here. Maybe. Yeah, maybe for when she had her hand up for public comments. I've done that myself. Okay. Well, I guess I'll wrap it up then in that
Great,
case.
thanks very much, Your Worship, councillors.
Oh, here she is. Okay.
Sorry about that, Your Worship. No, I just wanted to say thank Andrew for appearing tonight. She was just screaming, crying. So I apologize for stepping away for a second. But yes, thanks, Andrew, for appearing. And it's a long way that you've come with this organization. So it's impressive. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Do not apologize for Beatrix. She's doing her thing, what she's supposed to be doing. And that's all good. All right. So I'll say thanks very much. And we'll
Thanks very
see
much,
you.
everybody.
I'll see you at Growth. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So I'll take a motion to receive for information. Councillor Norton and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is item 10.1 under consideration of bylaws, and this is a proposed municipal plan amendment at 0 Alloy Drive. And you'll see in your council packet a letter from myself. And just as a summary, a public presentation for this item was made at council on September 16th. And this was with respect to a proposed municipal plan amendment at 0 Alloy Drive. And the required advertising was completed by the clerk's office, and we did not receive any letters from the public with respect to this item. Council may now refer this matter to the Planning Advisory Committee for report and recommendation. and also authorize staff to advertise a public hearing to be held with council on Monday, December 9th at 6:30. Also, council may choose to deny this application at this time.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to send this. Thank you. And I'll second her on to sending it. Thank you. The deputy has a question. So on the question, deputy, over to you first. You have a question for staff?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I see on the application for Mr. Simpson, he's looking for medium industrial zone. The letter from the common clerk and the, used the term heavy industrial. If it's medium industrial that we're looking for, why are we using heavy industrial in that letter? That's all I want to know.
So the zoning will be medium industrial, which is the zoning of the surrounding properties as well, along Alloway Drive and Prince William on that segment. The municipal plan only has two designations. It's light and heavy industrial. There is no medium industrial within the municipal plan. So the light industrial coincides with the light industrial zone. And then the medium industrial zone, as well as the heavy industrial zone, go within the heavy industrial designation. What prevents the heavy industrial designation from fully realizing the more noxious uses is the medium industrial zone, which has limits on the effects for neighboring properties. Medium industrial use specifically states that it must be contained within the property itself. So no noise, no adverse effects to neighbors at all. The difference between the light industrial and the medium industrial zones, light industrial, all activities must take place within inside of a building, whereas the medium industrial zone does allow for uses to happen outside of the building, with the caveat that it cannot affect neighboring properties in any capacity.
So this is a medium industrial application?
For the zoning, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
But the wording's correct in here with the heavy. Excellent. Okay, so we've got a motion to send to PAC on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Thomas, for answering that question. Appreciate it. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you. Next, we have item 10.2. This is a public presentation for proposed municipal plan amendment, Sunnyside Avenue.
I'm sending this one over to Commissioner Poffenroff to read into the minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship. For Council's information, a public presentation is a procedural requirement under the Provincial Community Planning Act for municipal plan amendment applications. This evening's first public presentation for multiple sites on Sunnyside Avenue and 288 and 304 Westmoreland Road commences a 30-day public review period during which members of the public may provide written submissions on the application as an early step in the process. Any submissions received will come back to Council following the close of the 30-day public review period for consideration before moving forward in the process. Following the 30-day public review period, it is anticipated that on December 9th, Common Council will refer the application to the Planning Advisory Committee for review and recommendation. Given this, the application is tentatively scheduled for the January 21st Planning Advisory Committee meeting and public hearing at the Common Council meeting at the beginning of February 2025. With that as an introduction, I will now read into the public record a copy of the public notice that commences the 30-day public review period, and you can see on the screen, hopefully, the location of the subject property. Thank you, Yeva. Public notice is hereby given that the Common Council of the City of Saint John intends to consider an amendment to the municipal development plan that would, 1, redesignate on Schedule A of the municipal development plan land having an approximate area of 4.67 hectares located on Sunnyside Avenue, 288 Westmoreland Road, and 304 Westmoreland Road, also identified as PIDs 00303-438, 5502-6900, 5502-6652, 5502-7072, 55026934, 55026660, 55027064, 55026769, 55026645, 55027056, 55026777, 55026678, 55027031, 55026785, 55026686, 55027049, 55026793, 55026694, 55027023, 55026819, 55026702, 55027015, 55026801, 55026710, 55027007, 55026892, 55026736, 55026991, 55026884, 55026728, 55026983, 55026876, 55026827, 55026959, 55026868, 55026835, 55026975, 55026587, 55026843, 55026967, 55026595, 55026850, 55026942, 55026603, 55026637, 55026918, 55026611, 55026926, 55026629, 55026751, 55026744, and a portion of PID 00415-422 from park and natural area to stable area as illustrated on the screen. And 2, redesignate on Schedule B of the Municipal Development Plan land having an approximate area of 4.67 hectares located on Sunnyside Avenue, 288 Westmoreland Road, and 304 Westmoreland Road as also identified as PIDs 00303-438, 55026900, 55026652, 55027072, 55026934, 55026660, 55027064, 55026769, 55026645, 55027056, 55026777, 55026678, 55027031, 55026785, 55026686, 55027049, 55026793, 55026694, 55027023, 55026819, 55026702, 55027015, 55026801, 55026710, 55027007, 55026892, 55026736, 55026991, 55026884, 55026728, 55026983, 55026876, 55026827, 55026959, 55026868, 55026835, 55026975, 55026587, 5502-6843, 5502-6967, 5502-6595, 5502-6850, 5502-6942, 5502-6603, 5502-6637, 5502-6918, 5502-6611, 5502-6926, 5502-6629, 5502-6751, 5502-6744, and a portion of PID 00415-422 from park and natural area to stable residential as illustrated on the screen. The reason for the change is to permit a mini home park residential development on the site. Written objections to the proposed amendment may be made to council by November 28th, and inquiries may be made to the office of the city clerk or Growth and Community Services in City Hall between 8:30 and 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a good one. Yeah, right. All right, next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is 10.3, and this is another public presentation of a proposed municipal plan amendment at 0 Bayside Drive.
Commissioner Poffenroff, back over to you.
This one is short. This one is shorter this time. This evening's second public presentation for a site located on Bayside Drive commences a 30-day public review period during which members of the public may provide written submissions on the application as an early step in the process. Any submissions received will come back to council following the close of the 30-day public review period for consideration before moving forward in the process. Following the 30-day public review period, it is anticipated that on December 9th, Common Council will refer the application to the Planning Advisory Committee for review and recommendation. Given this, the application is tentatively scheduled for the third week of January 2025 Planning Advisory Committee meeting and the public hearing at the Common Council meeting at the beginning of February 2025. With that as an introduction, I will now read into the public record a copy of the public notice that commences the 30-day public review period. The location of the subject property is displayed on the screen. Public notice is hereby given that the Common Council of the City of Saint John intends to consider an amendment to the municipal development plan that would 1. Redesignate on Schedule A of the Municipal Development Plan land having an approximate area of 34.5 hectares located on Bayside Drive, also identified as part of PID 55228134 from rural resource area to stable area as illustrated. And 2, redesignate on Schedule B of the Municipal Development Plan land having an approximate area of 34.5 hectares located on Bayside Drive, also identified as part of PID 55228134 from rural resource to rural residential. The reason for the change is to allow for the construction of a privately serviced small neighborhood development. Written objections to the proposed amendment may be made to council by November 27th, and inquiries may be made to the office of the city clerk or Growth and Community Services in City Hall between 8:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is item 12.1 on your agenda, and it's a staff report with respect to traffic calming, slowing more vehicles towards safer Saint John roads.
Director O'Reilly, I'm scared I see that giant pad of paper there. I'm handing it over to you.
Great, thanks, Your Worship. So, Your Worship and Council, we've heard the requests from the community to increase our response to speeding concerns within Saint John. I call them requests, but oftentimes these are actually pleas from our members of our community because they're impassioned at a real concern for the safety of those who are contacting us or their loved ones. At times, these requests come from individual residents. They come from a group of residents representing a neighborhood. In some cases, they come from an association representing an entire neighborhood. We actually have members of our Champlain Heights community group in attendance this evening. At other times, we have administration of the schools or the parent school support committees reaching out to us with concerns of safety of their streets. And the number of these concerns we are receiving are only growing. City staff knows that members of council are also hearing these requests. We have discussions. We know you were involved in communications as well with members of the community. And more recently, when you were listing off your priorities for 2025, the topic of traffic calming came up very well across the board in your comments. So my presentation this evening is going to have a few goals for it. One, just to provide the overall approach to how we're addressing speeding within a broader road safety context. I'm going to update council and our community on the steps we have taken and continue to take to make our roads safe, and recommended very specific recommendations with specific outcomes, including some collaboration we'll be requesting or asked to request from the province of New Brunswick. As we've consistently done, all the individual steps we take to improve safety on our roadways and accessibility of those for all modes of transportation come back to our overall goal of Move SJ, which is up on the screen. This philosophy not only extends to how we address vehicular traffic, but it's also important we keep going back to that overall goal. One of the challenges of a transportation system is, first of all, everybody experiences it. So everybody who walks out their front door, you on a sidewalk, transit, car, on a bike, they all experience it. And again, as I mentioned, it also can become emotional in terms of the impacts to road safety. So it's just human nature sometimes to get right down to the solution, whereas in some cases we always need to step back to the overall goals. And certainly as the members of council, we ask you to do that as well. This presentation is going to include many previous and recommended future initiatives the city will take to help deal with how fast vehicles are driving within our community, but our impact needs to be managed in terms of our expectations. The reality is it's an individual person who's behind every vehicle, whether it's a car or a truck, and they all have individual risk tolerance levels that impacts truly how fast they drive. There's a list of factors up on the screen, and we have control over very few of those. So, when any successful road authority deals with road safety, they have an arsenal of tools they use to address that. So typically, each community looks at three different pillars, one being education, enforcement, and engineering solutions to deal with road safety issues, including speeding. I'll come back to the education and enforcement pillars in a little bit in my presentation, but I'm going to focus a bit on the engineering pillar. This pillar involves a variety of tools about having the right infrastructure in the right places that best manages risks to our community and provides that access to all modes of transportation. Examples of that infrastructure are listed on the right of the screen and include making sure we have proper road design features that promote the acceptable level of vehicle speed. Transportation engineering used to follow the same philosophy as other engineering streams. You do the proper design, you apply a factor of safety to it, and then you implement your road design. What ended up happening was because of people behind the wheel of vehicles, they accommodate for that factor of safety we apply on the roads, and they end up driving faster. So the philosophy is changing, where we're focused more on the term traffic calming to make sure that the elements of the roads we're building are actually fit for how fast we want people to drive and how accessible we want them for different modes of transportation. There's a new term, relatively new term, called self-enforcing roads, where the actual design of the road tells people how fast they should drive, again, instead of overcompensating with factors of safety. The first comprehensive step towards implementation of traffic calming within our community was in 2012, when we adopted our first traffic calming policy. Although there were accumulating need before that to put structure in place around addressing speeding, there was one particular event on Heatherway in 2008 with the death of a pedestrian that really caused us to focus. The consultations we undertook with that community and the comprehensive steps completed afterwards ended up with a traffic calming plan for Heatherway and became the basis for the policy that was subsequently approved in 2012. That particular policy was completely created in-house, and very proud of that. The front page of the policy, as it's shown here, is actually part of the plan we implemented back in 2013, I believe it was, on Heatherway. Our traffic calming policy is comprehensive. I've included it with my report. First, the policy requires collected and analyzed operating speeds to justify traffic calming as actually required on a street. What ends up happening a lot of times is there's a perception from the community as to how fast vehicles are driving, but it's very important we make decisions based on good data rather than those perceptions. Generally, less than half the requests we receive for traffic calming actually justify traffic calming after we do the data analysis. Only these roads with confirmed speeding end up receiving traffic calming according to the city's policy. If a road is confirmed to have a sufficient level of speeding, there's a comprehensive and consistent process that must be followed, ultimately resulting in an implemented traffic calming plan as a retrofit solution on an existing street. We then monitor vehicle speeds and volumes to measure the performance of what we've implemented. There are other aspects of the policy as well. There's a criteria that we use to rate the priority of different traffic calming plans that are before us that need to be implemented. Again, all based on a community risk process. There's some aspects to that criteria that's based on the level of usage of a particular street, the types of pedestrians that might be out there using a street, as well as other accumulating risk factors such as the volume and speeds of vehicles on a street. In addition to that, there's emphasis in the traffic calming policy around how we develop new roads and how development occurs within our community, so we're preventing issues before they even become apparent after the road's built. Just a couple weeks ago, we had a discussion around the Martha Avenue developed where we worked with the developer to implement traffic calming as part of that development plan, so we didn't have to do it retroactively. The same approach we're making around capital jobs as well. And making sure that our capital jobs are incorporating traffic calming within it. If you're going to wrap up the street anyway, you might as well do it at that time. There's also an inventory of go-to traffic calming measures which we look to implement depending on the situation. There's also a contemplation that the policy be reviewed and updated as time goes on. And so we've not only implemented several traffic calming plans since 2012, but we've also tailored the plan for the needs of the community. And this up on the screen is just a list of some of the changes we made since 2012, again, to respond to the changed community needs. We developed our Safer School Zone program, and proudly we have traffic calming plans around 17 elementary and middle schools by working with the schools over a number of years. We did have the policy critiqued by an independent consultant, with essentially agreement that the policy is great with a few additions, which I'll get into. We've been doing a lot with our data gathering equipment to make sure that we're using the right equipment in the right situations to, again, obtain that important volume and speed data. As this council is aware, there's a lot of interest in reducing speed limits, so we looked at that a couple of years ago, again, to complement the overall policy. Back in 2022, we recognized that we needed some improvements to make sure it's an inclusive policy for all members of the community. So we had prioritization aspects in there for young children around schools, but we incorporated, with council's support, criteria specifically for those who are disabled, as well as the elderly population. And as I mentioned, we also, again, work towards new developments and making sure traffic calming is incorporated. Specifically, some of the capital jobs, we've been making huge gains, and again, incorporating that traffic calming mentality within capital jobs. Good examples are the Charlotte Street project, right, with a complete streets approach. Garden Street, we're actually now going to be able to implement a road diet and bike lane plan on both City Road and Station Street. By the way, we reconstructed Garden Street. There's plans for a roundabout next year at Foster Thurston and Sandy Point Road to address an ongoing speeding issue on those two streets. As well as long as we get the provincial support to implement this, a roundabout at the intersection of the airport arterial with Loch Lomond Road. Next year in our capital plan, which we're actually going to talk about later on this evening, there's a rotary reduction plan. We're going to look at different streets around the city to actually narrow the width of the streets. So again, we're making a lot of efforts within our existing capital program using the same prioritization criteria around community risk that I talked about earlier in our policy. The need for our policy to be flexible has been even more apparent over the last couple of years. So we typically receive about 20 requests a year in previous years to calm traffic. That amount has tripled over the last number of years in terms of community requests for traffic calming. So as a result, we have a current backlog of around 300 traffic calming requests. Again, many of these coming from impassioned members of our community to address their safety concerns. So again, we pivoted, as we've done many times over the last 15 years, to respond to this increased demand. First, as city staff, we know the overall needs for the community continue to outpace our resources. Just last Wednesday, the Finance Committee received a sobering update around our infrastructure deficit. And of course, you as council are continuing to push for taxation reform. So the last thing I wanted to do in the last couple of years with this increased demand is to come in with a huge resource addition request to address this growing request within our community. So instead, we recommended and received support, again, from Public Safety and Common Council to actually reduce the resource investment in each and every plan so we produce results faster within our community. So starting with as a pilot project in 2022 and shifting to a program in 2024, we implemented our expedited traffic calming program. Up on the screen right now are the original 15 steps with every traffic calming project, which we intended to implement. So as you can see, we've actually removed 6 of the 15 steps within that traffic calming policy in order to get results faster for our community. The only caution that I made, and I continue to make tonight, is when you cut steps out in a process like this, you're going to open yourself up to more criticism. But again, at the end of the day, we're increasing our level of investment within traffic calming, and again, still making good choices, including specifically making sure that we have speed and volume data to justify the investments. So one of the big changes we made with the expedited program was to target one specific type of traffic calming measure. Again, instead of spending a lot of time trying to figure out what the best measure is for a particular application, we targeted down to one specific measure called the speed cushion. So speed cushions are very similar to speed bumps or speed humps that you often see. But as you can see on the right-hand side here, they do have gaps within them for larger vehicles like emergency vehicles, transit, and are even more accessible by cyclists. Speed cushions have proven to reduce vehicle speeds in other jurisdictions, generally about 8 km/h average speeds being reduced. On McNamara Drive, we were successful at reducing the speeds on that street by 9 km/h, and volumes decreased by 60%. Just recently on Douglas Avenue, after we implemented the speed cushions on that street, we had a speed reduction of 3.5 km/h, but perhaps more impressive, we had a 20% increase in the number of motorists that were traveling within the 40 km/h speed limit. As council's aware, we did reduce the speed limit on Douglas Avenue and had a challenge having motorists actually drive within that speed limit. So the speed cushions cause more vehicles to drop right within that speed limit. I will say that no traffic calming measure is perfect. Speed cushions aren't perfect, but neither is any other traffic calming measure. This chart, again, it's too small to see, but the point is, this is from a national standard on traffic calming. There's several green columns that talk about the benefits of each traffic calming measure, and there's several red columns there that indicate the potential downfalls of each traffic calming measure. Every measure is going to have downfalls. Speed cushions are not prone to those issues, but neither is any other traffic calming measure. So again, from the pilot project, we moved to an actual plan in 2024. Common Council did approve an additional $150,000 in 2024 operating budget. And we increased the number of streets with speed cushions from 1 to 4 on Cedarwood Drive, Douglas Avenue, Spark Grove Road, as well as Dever Road. Just for a second on the resources we have for traffic calming. So as I mentioned earlier, we work hard as we can within the resources we have to implement as many traffic calming projects as possible and still have some level of standard with which we implement those. However, ultimately, there is a limit to what we can do with the resources available to us. Our road safety and traffic calming resources are really broken down to two broad categories. There's our traffic engineering resources and then our installation teams that actually put the measures on our street. So the traffic engineering team works on the overall transportation plan initiatives. We work hard to ensure our system is adequate to support development. We interact with citizens, come up with solutions to their concern. We collect and analyze data, develop, coordinate, inspect individual road safety plans, and we work with the capital program team, and we work with other partners such as Saint John Police Force. There are two members of city staff responsible for this traffic engineer position. I spend about 20% of my time on the file, but of course I'm also the Director of Public Works with a team of around 100 employees and 9 different service budgets. A little over a year ago, we hired another employee, Jill DeBerchant, who I believe you've all met. Jill spends about 50% of her time on transportation engineering duties and spends the other half of her time managing different capital projects. So together, between Jill and I, we amount to about 3/4 of a full-time transportation engineer. Both Moncton and Fredericton have recognized the same level of deficit in terms of their resources, and now both have 2 full-time transportation engineers, whereas again in Saint John, we continue to have less than 1 between us. Our installation teams, the most of these projects that are completed with our outside workforce. So the outside workforce, or we have a number of employees in the public works that do these projects, but they're also, again, responsible for all the maintenance activities, the pothole filling, the street cleaning, sidewalk maintenance, winter snow and ice control. And so the $150,000 that was added to the budget last year really helps this team do extra hours to get a lot of these traffic calming projects done, but it's in addition to the maintenance activities that they also have on their plates. So often I'll get the question is why does it take these traffic calming projects to get completed sometimes? It's because our staff are doing the regular jobs during the week and then have to spend extra time to get the extra work done. So for 2025, you'll see a couple recommendations in the presentation to ingest some additional funds from the capital and the capital reserve budgets in the amount of $450,000. So if council supports this recommendation, we're going to move from 4 projects in 2024 to approximately 12 in 2025, so tripling the amount of streets with speed cushions. So far, we've identified 6 of those 12 streets based on, again, more speed analysis, and those 6 streets are up on the screen here, as well as including Champlain Drive. We're also planning to purchase some rubber temporary speed cushions to start to test those on some busier collector and arterial streets. It is known that speed cushions are not necessarily the best option for arterial and collector streets, but again, based on the demand from our community, we're going to start to use these temporary speed cushions to trial them on some busier streets. So I touched so far in this presentation on the engineering stream of, again, a road safety plan. Just around education, we did implement just a year or so ago our first road safety education program, and our police force are doing a great job as well at doing their annual program around enforcement and education. I do want to move on to the pillar of enforcement now. So similar to other city departments, our Saint John Police Force continues to face mounting demands for service delivery. And of course, once again, in 2025, Common Council will be challenged to resource the mounting need for service enhancements. Often when I communicate with members of the community about road safety concerns, including speeding, the requests we get from the community are a combination of engineering solutions, but again, requests for more enforcement to make sure that more motorists are staying within the posted speed limits. Some jurisdictions in Canada and beyond are moving to the use of technology to supplement the limited number of police officers available. This technology is used for traffic enforcement, such as speed enforcement, so the limited number of officers available can concentrate on other needs within their community. This technology can differ in terminology depending on location. Here within New Brunswick, we start to coin the term image capturing enforcement, where equipment such as photo radar is typically used for the equipment used to conduct speed enforcement, whereas red light cameras are often used to write fines for situations where motorists are running red lights through signalized intersections. Image capturing enforcement is proven to improve road safety, including speeding and collision reduction. I provide some stats on this slide in my report. Just 4 weeks ago, the provincial government initiated regulations that allows municipalities within New Brunswick to implement image capturing enforcement. I want to be clear that this evening, city staff is not seeking Common Council's approval to start using this technology within Saint John, but there's a pretty specific reason why we're not recommending such at this time. Before I come back to the situation in New Brunswick, I'd like to discuss the Canadian jurisdiction I believe we should emulate around this type of enforcement. So since 2015, I've been keeping an eye on the city of Edmonton. Edmonton has implemented image capturing enforcement as part of their broader road safety strategy. They see improvements in reduced speeding and collisions. How Edmonton funds the road safety program is pretty inspiring in my view. The province of Alberta allows municipalities in that province to keep approximately 50% of the revenues collected from traffic fines, including from image capturing enforcement. Edmonton then uses those resources to not only fund the equipment and operational costs needed for this technology, but also funds other aspects of road safety, including traffic calming measures. Edmonton uses more of a user pay model, where those who choose to speed pay for the very measures the community must invest in to counter that behavior, instead of that cost being deferred off to the general tax base. The province of New Brunswick implemented an important step at the beginning of this month, allowing municipalities again in our province to the choice to implement this image capturing enforcement. However, with these recent regulation changes, the province has not emulated Alberta's financial model, as 100% of traffic fine revenues still go to the province. There's no current funding model to allow New Brunswick municipalities to fund image capturing equipment, nor the other aspects of road safety. We're recommending the Common Council endorse advocacy efforts to change this, using the Edmonton and Alberta as the model. So in conclusion, our staff is recommending to Council this evening 3 recommendations. So again, 2 sources of capital funding amounting to $450,000 to increase our implementation of speed cushions, as well as again to authorize the mayor to send a letter to the province to start an advocacy effort to once again share some revenues from the province to again fund our road safety initiatives, including if council ever decides to implement image capturing enforcement. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Director O'Reilly. We do have a couple of questions for you. Great report, very fulsome, and a lot of things in there that drive me crazy, like not keeping the money from our fines, but we're going to try to address that. Councillor Sullivan, over to you first.
Thanks, Your Worship. A couple of comments and maybe a question at the end. Director O'Reilly, thanks for the presentation. You talked about the expedited process when we took 6 steps out, and a couple of the steps were having conversations with the neighborhoods on a traffic calming solution coming to your neighborhood. And I would suggest, as much as I think it's important that we hear from neighborhoods on their concerns, neighborhoods aren't the experts in the solutions. And, just following Saint John social media now, we've installed solutions in some neighborhoods. Now the boo birds have come out to say, what are you doing, putting speed cushions in our neighborhood? And at the end of the day, you said it, we react based on data.
Yes.
So a concern comes forward, we look at the data, and I said I'm not a fan of 40 kilometer speed zones, because the law-abiding citizens reduced to 40 kilometers an hour. People who were speeding before are still speeding until they start hitting curves, designs, speed humps or road cushions, whatever you want to call them, those physical aspects are the piece that actually slow the folks down. So I really appreciate those investments. I like your comment that less than 50% of requests show a need for calming, but we do respond based on data. Just want to double down to the former chair of our public safety committee who's here, one more message to take to Fredericton, and I know he fully understands it. I think St. John would fully embrace technology to help with the enforcement. But it doesn't make sense for the province to say to the cities, you invest it, you fund it, you pay the capital, you pay to upkeep and do everything, and any of the money that comes from it goes to the province. So that's the piece that's missing. As money guy here, I think it is a fantastic method of enforcement because there can't be a police car in every street. But there could be cameras in a lot of places hooked into the technology if the funding is shared so that the city doesn't have to do all the expense and the province gets all the revenue. I know that that's understood, but important that we start talking about it now. My question is this, and it's really specifically around a traffic circle or at Loch Lomond Road and the airport arterial. You talked about if we could do it if the province came forward to partner. It's my understanding that both those roads, that's the province's intersection. So the Department of Transportation, and correct me if I'm wrong, if they decided to do it, they could go in and do it. The city of St. John certainly can advocate for it, but what do we have to do with it? It's not our road.
Yeah, I'll turn over to the CEO as well, but I mean, it is a provincial designated highway. That's the classification of it. So the province has to be partner at the table in terms of funding that. But CEO?
Yeah, we agree, Councillor. All the land is owned by the province, so it would be a provincial project. However, in saying that, through the PMP program, the Provincial Highways Program, we applied as an alternative, given that there are streets that can't be resurfaced because of the bridge to West St. John being down for construction for another year. And with that, there's a requirement for some sort of support or investment from the municipality. So we've offered an in-kind support from a project management perspective, but that there would be no money spent from the municipal sources. It would solely be in-kind services through project management.
Totally good with that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to Director O'Reilly. Thank you for this. I think that Mr. Jerry Irish would probably like a big thank you from Champlain Heights, because listening to the community and having the data like Councillor Sullivan was talking about is the important thing, and the data was already there, so it's good to see this coming. What is your insight about Manawaganish Road that I'm hearing a lot about?
I guess the first thing is when I mentioned on the earlier screens about what influences people's speed, there's something called speed adaptation. And what that occurs is situations where motorists are either entering or leaving a high-speed highway system. Okay? So it's fortunate in some respects that we have Route 100 at 100 kilometers an hour through our city. But in some cases, people are getting into or trying to get out of the mindset of driving that speed. And so I think what's happening towards the end of Manawaganish Road, and I know citizens are concerned about that end of it, is you're either entering or leaving the highway system right around that area. So the ability to overcome that is definitely going to be challenging. Again, speed cushions themselves are probably not going to be the right solution for this. I mentioned roundabouts, so there's 5 in total that we recommend in the future as part of Move SJ. One of them is a roundabout right at the intersection of Manawaganish and Galt, which is very nearby. So it'll create that mindset change easier for motorists leaving or entering the roadway system. We have, and I mentioned earlier, we have different technology we use to collect speed and volumes information. We actually partnered with St. John Energy a couple of years ago, and we have 10 different semi-permanent monitoring devices up around the city. Don't collect license plates or individual vehicles, but they collect speed data. And they're very conspicuous because they're literally in streetlight poles.
Yeah,
Where
I think we
streetlights
have them
are.
at Hickey Road.
Yes, so
Yeah.
we have 10 of them around the city. There's one on Lachlan Road near Hickey Road, but one of them is on Madawaganish Road, very close to Day Drive. And I did double check the stats today, and that road, out of all the 10 locations, have the highest operating speeds on them. And so there's definitely an issue with speeding on Madawaganish Road. It's just, like I said, it's in combination with that speed adaptation problem. And again, the future solution is definitely going to be that roundabout to help get the speeds down.
Tim, is it more practical to narrow the road than to put in a roundabout?
Well, part of the issue with narrowing the road there is that it is part of the cycling system within Saint John. So not only is it 2 vehicle lanes, but we have two bike lanes on either side of Madawaganish Road. And so basically the width of the road is used by the 2 vehicle lanes plus the bike lane. So, but again, no matter what solution we come up with, if it's not a retrofit, even narrowing the road would be very costly to implement that along the whole stretch of Madawaganish Road. But yeah, certainly, definitely that roundabout at some point, installed a Galt Road would definitely help get the speeds down coming on and off the highway system.
Okay, Mayor, I have one more question, but I'll come back around, I guess.
Great. Councillor Ogden, over to you.
Yeah, Tim, 2 things. One, what you were just talking about, the people down on Paradise Row, they take their life in their hands when they're crossing the exit that's coming off the highway from the KV, because it says 50, but I've gone down and watched them, and they're flying off there, and I spoke to you about this before, and you have to deal with DTI, which takes care of hospitals, schools, roads. It's a huge bureaucratic octopus sitting in Fredericton that it's not attached to the communities at all. I'm hoping our Liberal government, Mr. Hickey, will take a look at DTI. But that speed limit, if it was lowered, it would be safer, because there's people that still will not use Stanley Street Pedway. It's solid rust and it's not lit well, and then they have to go down the other way. So if you go down to the Wright Street area, Stanley Village, whatever, there's a lot of people that work at St. Joe's. When my mom was at St. Joe's, I heard it all the time, that walking down by Paradise Road, the traffic, and then going across the Stanley Street Pedway, which is just a pile of rust and with very few lights, it was very unsafe. So I don't know how you can get through to the people living in Fredericton about that area, but our poverty neighborhoods are very few cars and are walking neighborhoods. And so a lot of people who work at St. Joe's have to walk through there and either using the Stanley Street Pedway or Paradise Row, and they're both not safe. But I think sometimes DTI is more concerned about trucks and cars than they are people. Maybe it's still think that New Brunswick's a rural outfit. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is I often wonder if sound and speed are related. We had an incident a couple weeks ago where we were painting a house across the street from Tim's. And I had a mother come to me and said that my baby is waking up because the 3 bikers and the 69 Camaro are going up and down Waterloo Street and they don't have mufflers. So a man who was working shift work came to me, and I did call the police, but they were very slow to respond, and you don't see them on the streets. And then the other person was just an older gentleman who naps in the afternoon. And I said, look, I'm a counselor. So I went over after a whole day of this to Tim's, and I did not get a really good reception, to put it lightly. But anyway, they said, what business is yours? We'll make, but they were all using a lot of sound in their travel. And they were driving up and down Waterloo Street like maniacs, and the 69 Camaro. Well, the second day I went over again, one of them said he's driving all our customers away, which I don't know what that meant, but they didn't want me coming over again. But the third day they left, but the people in the area who were afraid of them told me that none of them lived in Waterloo. We've done about 60 projects in the Waterloo Street area in the last 28 years with marigolds and murals. We've never had an incident. And the people have always been really good no matter where their economic, social place in life is. They've been excellent. But the other day, these 4 guys, and they were trying to intimidate people. But the thing is, I noticed, I don't know how you get your jollies. I have a muscle car too, but I don't know how you get your jollies because you're making sound when you're going fast. But that seemed to be, like, I think if you took the sound away, like if we enforced our sound bylaws, we'd be taking some of the speed away. So that's something to think about.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy?
Thank you, Your Worship. Tim, this is a great report. I know we get all kinds of calls on this. I could sit here all night telling you stories about this, you know that. I totally agree, and I'll move this recommendation. The only thing I'm wondering is, why are we going for at least 50%? Why aren't we asking for 100%?
Well, that's definitely the reason why we bring the recommendation forward, because ultimately, council decides it. I guess the basis for 50% is, as I mentioned, I really believe we in the province need to emulate what they do in Edmonton and Alberta, right? And what they do in Edmonton and Alberta shares, again, 50% of the revenues back to the city of Edmonton. The recommendation is at least 50%, right? So I think what's going to happen is once the discussions start with the province, hopefully there are discussions, we can agree on what that appropriate share is going to be. What I would suggest as an added point is if the province continues to hang on to some of this funding, you also have the Department of Public Safety, which provides resources for road safety. So part of the option is, if the province has decided to hang on to some of this revenues, that we can suggest that they use that, again, same mentalities with the municipalities we use, to use that for their resources they ingest in the community around road safety. But look, the 50% is just based on, again, emulating what they do in Edmonton, Alberta, but it is the floor, not the ceiling at that 50% level.
Well, it'd be 50% more than what we're getting now. So I'll move the recommendation.
Take a seconder on it. Councillor Stewart. Okay, I've got a couple more. I'm going to go to Councillor Norton because he hasn't had a first round yet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tim, thanks for the report. I think of the directors and the commissioners that I email or have regular dialogue with the most, and it would probably be scary how many times I've sent you an email. And we can all say, I would say collectively, we can all say, and for the public's benefit as well, the care and the comprehensive replies that you provide, counselors, they're commendable. So I think it's important. Recognizing the tremendous amount of frustration that residents have and we have as it relates to traffic calming, that can't overshadow the care and the passion that you have for the job that you do. So thank you. I mean that. With that, we all have in our respective wards roads like Dever, Manawagonish, Galt Road. Holy smokes, I could go on. I'll stop there. We hear lots about red light cameras and traffic and using, I guess, just using speed radar as one. I really want to hit that one home. I get it that 100% of the revenues are going there. I remember the successive governments that scraped that away. It was, the cost share was 50-50. Actually, at one time it was 25-75. Then it went 50-50, then it went 75-25, it flipped, and now it's 100%. I don't think we can let revenue get in the way or trump, traffic calming or pedestrian safety. I don't think we can. On the counter side, and it's not that I necessarily disagree, but I mean, it's hard with some of these measures. It can slow down, there's reports that it says it slows down emergency vehicles. Some of our traffic calming measures says that it can, they can be costly to repair. They can be costly to install. Those are all true with some of the things that we're talking about. You know, you only have to go across Reversing Falls Bridge, and we've had one of our 4 traffic units parked there now for your West Sider. You see it for 3 successive weeks, right there at the top, from the moment you leave in the morning till probably not. It must be 2 or 3 hours a day with the lights on, sitting. That's costly. You haven't seen it. I don't know who's. I mean, I go by it every morning. And go down Chesley, go up by Greenlee Shoes, drop one off at Harborview, and go back. I mean, that's costly. And then sometimes I'm thinking, every time I go by, could a camera not do that? I think a camera could. In fact, I know a camera could. And that same patrol car could be in a different neighborhood doing the job. We've had that same patrol car there for 3 weeks, folks. And despite the fact that 100% of revenues are going, I think a couple $172 fines would help mitigate that. I think it's got to be something. It has to be something in our toolbox that we're using on some of those streets, even in the absence of a cost sharing agreement. I am not confident we're going to get any more revenue back. The province will come back and say, we're the ones that are paying for the court time. We're the ones paying for the judges. We're the ones that are paying for the prosecution. You do it. But that has to be part of it. We've had very close instances on Galt Road, and a number of others. If it's only going to be speed cushions and speed bumps and speed humps and those sorts of things, I think we're missing an important component, and part of it is using that Motor Vehicle Act to penalize motorists for excessive speeds and some of those other infractions. We've got to have electronic eyes out there that are part of this, and I don't know how we get around it, because police officers can't be everywhere, and they're very, very costly. But right now we've got one that's parked at the end of Douglas Avenue every single day, and it's going to be about, we're going into a month. And I understand why we're doing it. I get it. But I also understand some electronic enforcement would be necessary too, because as soon as the police officer leaves, guess what happens? As soon as it happens, and I saw it today, they go left off that Reversing Falls Bridge. As soon as she leaves, as soon as the constable's gone, boom. So just from a motorist perspective, I share the frustration, but not the appreciation for the job you do. And but it has to be part of the mix. Thank you, Your Worship, for letting me rant.
It was a little bit of a rant there, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harris hasn't had a crack at this yet, so I'm going to go to him next.
Oh, man, yeah, we're all weighing in here. Mayor, thank you. I guess I'm in agreement that come what may, whether we get the province to step up and say, hey, we care about this issue and want to help you with it on the funding model, we got to deploy this stuff. Also, I don't quite understand why we're using stopgap measures as our preferred method of engagement. Design, to me, is still the missing link in all this. You know, as a builder, I only assume that there is some level of comparability to the road design world, in which you can develop some off-the-shelf plans that you say, when road looks like road A and has problem A, you know, solution B can be employed at a price tag of around this much per engagement. So like, I look at so many issues like you're talking about Manawaganish, and the first thing that pops into my head is reduce that road width, which Councillor Radwan points out, and utilize that elevated area for extended sidewalks or raised bike lanes. Expensive. So we don't say we're going to pay for it this year, but we say this is our preferred engagement method. We believe this would go the furthest in solving its problems. It has a price tag of X amount of dollars. We can only fund 20%. and we wave that flag and say we're looking for a 80% funding partner from either a combo of Fed, province, or who knows, private engagement. Like I've heard tell of private folks stepping up to fund municipal issues. Really, really rare, but it does happen. But it can't happen unless we have some sort of flag we're waving to say, from a design perspective, here are 9 areas where we know the design is the preferred method. So I don't see that here, and I don't.
Sure.
And I understand you're talking about limited resources.
Yeah.
But if I were to approve a draft budget, let's say, with Tim's top ask, what would it be?
Yeah. So if I could address that, and Councillor Norton brought this up too. The speed cushions, it's the go-to solution for retrofitting existing streets. Okay, and with 300 requests, we're not going to be able to fund 300 large-scale capital projects to address those. Okay, but on the capital side, and I did mention this in my report, and I'll touch on it again. Every time we look at a capital job, we review the width of the street, whether we can implement traffic calming within that project. In some cases, like the 2 roundabout projects, they're pretty much out of the need to address traffic calming. So there's some that are specifically related to traffic calming. We do have money, and you'll be considering it later this evening in the 2025 capital program to actually look at streets around Saint John to purposefully reduce the width of them, right? To find out which ones are good candidates to reduce. We've got lots of streets around, again, and we could have had a lot more based on the 50s plan that overbuilt streets for a much larger population than what we ended up with, right? And so again, the plan for next year is to actually look at some of those streets purposefully to find out which ones we can actually narrow the width of the street, but not impact, for example, active transportation needs or convert the space over. So again, the speed cushions are that we've got to do more because the people are demanding more, and we can't fund everything to the extent we can. So let's implement these for retrofits. But again, we're not losing sight at all on new developments and new roads or our overall capital program, and making sure that we're incorporating those into those projects already being planned. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan, you've had one go, haven't you? Okay, I'll go to Councillor Redwan next. Sorry, she was next
Thank you,
on the
Mayor.
list, and then put your light back. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Through you to Director O'Reilly. So we did McNamara, right? There was a lot. I was shocked with how much speed was going down McNamara. I think it was over 90 or 100 or something in this subdivision. It was crazy. So, and I was advocating a little harder. We had a hearing impaired child, autistic, on the street as well. So that kind of influenced me a little bit. But then I also get another email. And it's like, okay, they're done now on McNamara. Now we need them on Lakeview. And I just thought, whoa, wait a second. Because my first thought was, if we do them now on Lakeview, then what does that mean? We're directing all the traffic to Pauline, to Charles. So because obviously you have less traffic going when there's speed cushions. So how do we do this so that we're not actually causing potentially major issues? Because now you're directing a whole bunch of traffic down a certain street. And I get wanting Lakeview because the school's there, right? So it was a fair question, but I said, wait a second, actually, I need to ask a bunch of information to figure out whether or not that's even a good idea.
Yeah. So no, one of the side benefits, in some cases the detriments, is that speed cushions and other traffic calming will not only reduce speeds, but will reduce volumes. In a case like Douglas Avenue, it's going to be a huge win, and we're just still analyzing the data to see it. But in the case of reducing volumes on Douglas Avenue, means they're pushing the traffic over to Chelsea Drive where they really belong, right? But no, absolutely, there are going to be situations where we implement a solution on one street, and it just, now, we're still going to address the speeding, which is one factor in terms of road safety. But no, certainly one of the ramifications is to move more traffic over to an adjacent street. Interesting talking to the folks in Champlain Heights as an example. They had a whole list of requests, right, to address the volumes and access onto Champlain Drive. But one of them was to consider putting traffic lights where Champlain Drive meets Grandview Avenue. But one of the ramifications is if you make it easier for people to travel on streets, you're going to invite more cut-through traffic. So no, that's why we look at these transportation systems as a system, is because everything we do, there can be side impacts on the side. And like I said, we're being diligent, but we're also reducing some steps in our process just to answer to more of these requests. And there are going to be times where we either don't get it right or we create some inadvertent impacts on a neighboring street. So yes, that's a risk, and it's going to happen.
Well, and it's great that we're doing the Champlain Drive. The school's there too and everything. But then at the same time, I'm thinking, what about Heather Way? Is it gonna? So anyway, I think we have to be mindful of that and what to do. And I don't know if there's any rules of thumb that we need to go by, but anyway, looking to hear your direction, because we don't need to create more problems in other streets.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan, wrapping us up.
Thanks, Your Worship. This is why I like listening to the conversation. I've, got my cohort at the end saying we should go forward on the electronic system no matter what. I have the CFO on my left telling me the province should be paying us 125% to do it. And,
I like that.
And I've got the engineer in front of me saying data, data, data. So maybe a request to the city manager, like, no rush on this, but I think if we're going to discuss this, we should find out what it actually costs to do it. Because then we know what we're talking about. Then we know what we're asking perhaps from the provincial government. Maybe, if it's cheaper to put cameras in and process than it is to put speed cushions in, maybe that. But at the end of the day, let's find out what it costs, and then we can have a really informed discussion.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good idea.
Maybe just around costing, if I may, and I didn't want to necessarily bring this up, but I will. But we did look at the city of Edmonton. In 2023 alone, the city of Edmonton, with their enforcement program, collected $29 million to be used for the road safety initiatives, right? So again, that covers the infrastructure for the cameras, but also, again, they use that money to invest in traffic calming education, et cetera. So.
Listen, that sounds great. Just for the public, the province doesn't pay for policing for the city of Saint John, but it does pay for policing for lots of other communities, smaller communities. It would support the RCMP, whatever. So we don't have that. And I had that same question as Councillor Sullivan had on my mind, like, what is the cost of traffic policing in Saint John? The Motor Vehicle Act is old. When I see a car parked on a sidewalk, we need police to ticket for that. Our own parking agents can't ticket for that because of the Motor Vehicle Act, which is crazy, because calling police to ticket for a vehicle on the sidewalk is a waste of a resource that in today, when you have an increase of crime and break-ins and whatever, they could be doing work that they're actually designed to do. So I have a lot of frustration with that, and I like that the language in the recommendation is at least 50%. So, maybe we'll need to look at a bit more. We'll have to see, as you say, how we can negotiate for that, because it would make a huge difference to safety. And we're on the ground and we're in the trenches with people who, as we've seen from your graph, are looking more and more for that safe neighborhood. It's interesting because those people that are requesting those things also are drivers. So I'm not getting why it's disconnecting. So when they drive obviously faster than they should be driving, because we're getting so many requests for traffic calming. So anyways, that's my little bit of a rant as well. But I'm happy to have the report. It's great. Got a lot of great information in it. You always do a great report, Tim. So it's nice to have you here. We'll get our letter off and see what happens. So I have a mover and a seconder on that. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is 13.1 from the Growth Committee, the Housing Accelerator Fund Grant Program.
I'm sending this over to the Chair, Growth, Deputy McKenzie. Over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Growth Committee endorsed the Housing Accelerator Fund Grant Program at their October the 8th meeting. This program is meant to help to spur the construction of more housing units over the next 1 to 2 years. This will ensure the city exceeds its commitment of issuing permits of over 1,100 new units from 2024 to 2026. Additional housing supply is key to meeting the city's growth goals. The HAF program has 3 funding streams that target specific forms, such as developments that face construction challenges known to Saint John, such as the cost of breaking rock, missing middle housing, and vacant buildings. Our housing manager, Andy Reid, is here to present the program in its details. Andy?
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I'm pleased to be here tonight to present the Housing Accelerator Fund grant program. So this is essentially the same presentation given earlier this month at Growth Committee. The grant program is funded through the Housing Accelerator Fund and is designed primarily to advance two initiatives from that Housing Accelerator Fund action plan, the Housing Concierge Program and Unlocking General Density initiatives. As it is based on half funding through CMHC, this is a time-sensitive grant and it is temporary in nature. The program prioritizes shovel-ready projects that have submitted a complete building permit with their application, or otherwise they will be given 6 months to obtain a complete building permit. The program is intended to help increase overall housing supply and meet the city's Housing Accelerator Fund commitment of issuing permits for at least 1,124 new units before the end of 2026. The program contains 3 grant streams: the Construction Challenges Grant, Missing Middle Housing Grant, and Revitalizing Rental Grant. So how we got here, since signing the HAF agreement at the end of last year, there have been several engagements. The HAF grant program was created with community and developer input, leveraged from engagement through recent plans and strategies, including the 2022 Affordable Housing Action Plan and the 2024 Residential Market Study. Staff also hosted a developer symposium earlier this March to solicit feedback. The program was created through various workshops, staff and Envision Saint John, and endorsed by Growth Committee at their meeting earlier this month. The Construction Challenges Grant, as mentioned earlier at tonight's meeting by Mr. Beckett, this grant's really intended to tackle specific construction challenges known to Saint John, such as rock. So this grant provides 50% of the cost of eligible construction challenges to a maximum of $10,000 per unit, up to 15 units. So that's an overall cap of $150,000. The basic eligibility criteria is that the development be fully serviced and create at least 5 new units with $200,000 in evidence construction challenges costs. So challenges may include rock breaking and importation of fill and remediation. The next grant stream, the Missing Middle Housing Grant, provides $5,000 per eligible unit, or $7,500 if the unit is a modular unit or an accessory dwelling unit. An accessory dwelling unit would be a case where someone's building a secondary suite or a garden suite. So this grant stream provides a maximum of $150,000 per application. The basic eligibility criteria is that the development be fully serviced and create at least 4 new units, with the exception if the applicant's applying for an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, and they only need 1 unit. And there is a focus in the criteria on compact building form, so townhouses and smaller multi-units that make efficient use of land. The third and final grant stream, Revitalizing Rental Grant. This grant provides $10,000 per unit in addition to the cost of building permit fees, up to a maximum of $50,000 per application. So the basic eligibility criteria, there are 2 sets of criteria for this program. The first is if the project receives and provides proof of support through the Provincial Residential Rehabilitation Assistance Program. That's the first set of criteria. And the second would be if the applicant is a nonprofit organization, receives approval from the city, and is redeveloping a building that's been vacant for at least 1 year. I would also mention that the vacant building redevelopment will also be examined through the city's current and ongoing development incentive review project. Each application will be evaluated by a grant committee at quarterly intakes. If approved, the first grant intake would open on November 1st for the HAF grant program and close on November 30th. A minimum score is required to qualify, and grants will be awarded to the highest score per intake according to the scorecard presented on your screen. Scorecard basis projects primarily on the merits of the project itself, its location, as well as the applicant's timeline, capability, and need. And there are a number of bonus project innovation scoring as well. If conditionally approved, the applicant or successful recipient would be provided 6 months to obtain a building permit. Once the permits has been obtained, the applicant would enter in a grant agreement with the city. That grant agreement would stipulate the terms and conditions, such as the work must be commenced within 6 months to begin fulfilling the permit. And most grants would be paid out at completion of foundation. All projects must complete their major milestone prior to April 2027. At the end of the project, the city will collect outcomes reports and post them publicly to the city website. The recommendation before you is that Common Council adopt the Housing Accelerator Fund grant program policy as generally presented to Council at tonight's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. You've got a mover and a seconder on that. Oh, you're going to.
Yeah, I'd like to move the recommendation with addition to the as read. Just to read, the Growth Committee recommend, or that Common Council move the Accelerator Housing Fund grant program policy as generally presented to committee at their October 8th meeting, and direct city manager to amend or to investigate an amendment to the policy to allow for progress payments for any of those three that we read tonight. So I did pass that on to the clerk, so it's articulated. But thanks, Councillor Stewart. The reason for that isn't to try to, we don't want to stall. After speaking with the CAO, it was clear that the timeline needed to be protected to pass this tonight, which mostly I'm supportive of. I did vote against this at Growth Committee on this issue because I do think if we're going to create a more permissive environment for other players to enter, progress payments is one way we can encourage that so that people can have predictable workflows and timelines for release of money. Some projects can take 9-10 months, some can take 14 months. And if we're not open to that, we don't have options for progress payments along the way, it can create an environment where you're only getting that high five at the very end of this and nowhere along the way, which makes it difficult for some actors to engage with. So we already do that for the Housing Accelerator Fund. There is the comment in here about on one of the programs being at foundation for a milestone. I think the city, the CIO can go away and take a peek at that and come back to council with any amendments to put in different milestones along the way for percentage delivery of successful applicants. So.
Over to you.
Your Worship, we could take a look at this. It's something I'd want to discuss with CMHC just to ensure we do our proper due diligence, make sure that it's permissible, and also find that right balance of taxpayer dollars being funded and given out to enable and motivate projects, but at the same time not putting taxpayers at risk. So finding that right balance so that we're motivating and supporting the market and development, but mitigating our risk exposure as well. So just to clarify, if the recommendation or the amendment could be read again, that it's to review it and report back, is that accurate?
I'm just making sure that's what I gave you, Common Clerk, because I wrote it down as we had discussed.
Yeah, so what I have here is that I would move that council direct CAO McGovern to review and amend the policy of these three grants to allow for progress payments to be made to successful applicants.
I would just say on that, Your Worship, that we may not be in a position to amend. We may review and come back and say it may be appropriate to do it in this case or in this case, but not across the board. I just can't presuppose that at this point in time.
So would we
if you
just
could
say
amend
review and recommend?
it.
Review and report back?
Okay.
And you'll read it for us for last. Councillor Ogden, do you have a question on that one? No.
Just point to this, is that I think it's a good idea because it's entrepreneurial, and we do have a housing crisis, and this is going to stimulate more housing and faster. And it does get probably more of the smaller guy in. But when CEO talked about taxpayers' dollars, just think about the taxpayers' dollar for spending on, what do we have this weekend? 3 fires on fire trucks, on people not feeling safe in certain neighborhoods, on security that we're talking about increasing the police budget. And think about what taxpayers are paying social workers, what's going on at the hospitals. There's one taxpayer. And poverty and homelessness it hurts the economy. It doesn't help the economy. So the economy is helped by having homes and by having healthy people and such. So when you're talking about taxpayers' dollars, we are already spending the money, folks. We're just spending it at the other end with fire trucks and police trucks and social workers and emergency rooms that are packed. That's where we're spending the money, as opposed to spending the money at the right place where we're also saving lives and making people more valuable. So I think it's a really good idea.
Thank you, Councillor. It is a good idea. We'll take a look at it. I think we need to spend the money that we have on the things that we can and that are in our lanes for sure, wisely. So are we all good with this? You're going to read it again?
Your Worship, so I would recommend, just to simplify, do 2 separate motions. So
Okay.
vote on the motion that's in front of council.
All right.
And then a separate motion for this.
Deputy? So hang on for a second then. How am I going to do that if I have a motion on the floor?
Well,
I'll remove my motion.
yeah, that's the easiest way to do it.
Okay, all right. All right. Deputy?
Okay.
You're gonna
Thank
move
you,
the first
Worship.
one?
Yes. I'm going to move the recommendation that the Growth Committee recommends that Common Council adopt the Housing Accelerator Fund grant program policy as generally presented to committee at their October 8th, 2024 meeting.
Seconder?
Seconder.
Councillor Sullivan? Okay. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Harris, over to you.
I'll move that the CAO take this away, review it, and come back with recommendations for progress payments
Okay.
where applicable.
Councillor Ogden? Okay, are we good? On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk. I know you're scrambling to get that stuff.
That's
written down.
okay. Next, we have 13.2, Finance Committee update on the 2025 draft general and utility fund capital budgets.
Okay, this is going to your Chair of Finance Committee, which is Councillor Sullivan. Over to you.
So exciting, they're all leaving.
Everybody's leaving. Oh, yeah.
I'll move the recommendation first, and with the seconder, I'll hit some highlights.
Thank you. Mover
Thanks.
and seconder.
So this is for the general fund and utility capital budgets. This was seen at Finance Committee in July and September, and then was before Council as a receive and file on our October 15th meeting. This evening, the Finance Committee is recommending over $54 million in combined general fund and utility fund investment in the community for 2025. Of the $54 million, over $24 million of that investment is sourced from contributions from other levels of government. So certainly thank you to our provincial and federal partners. The general fund budget's an investment of almost $40 million, with $18.8 million coming from other government sources. The city shares a combination of borrowing, pay-as-you-go, and capital reserves. And while we are borrowing next year, we are retiring more debt than we are borrowing. So the net debt is still getting better. The general fund budget aligns with our financial policies, our capital budget policy, debt management policy, and various other financial principles and asset management policy. The general fund budget covers a wide range of reinvestment into city assets, including regional facilities, asphalt resurfacing, street reconstruction, traffic safety and calming. As we heard tonight, various facilities, a new ERP, City Market Strategic Plan, and Saint John Transit. New investments include an extension of Harbor Passage, Rainbow Park, Pickleball Court, new roundabout, and continued investment in Atoli Makahamak. The utility fund budget is an investment of $14 million, with $8.3 million coming from pay-as-you-go and capital reserves, and there is no new debt issued for 2025. Bit of a footnote at our last Finance Committee meeting, there is a discussion as we look forward to 2026 with regards to infrastructure deficit and how we start to look at that. But what we've got before us is for next year. Projects include investment to enhancing the reliability of the water and wastewater systems, improvements to the city's watershed, and key investments to support our city's growth objectives. Those are the highlights. The recommendations are before you. There's all sorts of staff from finance and from all around the city. Management is on the screen at home and in the audience should there be any questions.
Thank you, Councillor. So I have that motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. I don't see any questions, so I'll call. I've got a question. Councillor Ogden.
Not a question, just a little budge to Gary and Kevin sitting side by side. We need a lot more money in recreation and to take care of what we own. And I don't know how we can manage that more, but Mark Dion could use a lot more money. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ogden. And just before we take a vote, just some thank yous to go out. I know there are many staff who go into putting this together, and they're not all the finance people who love seeing dollar signs and numbers. So just thank you to our finance staff, but certainly to the operations folks who, as I say, have hung out tonight in case there are any questions and who helped put the work into this.
Yeah, I want to thank the staff as well, because it's a big job to put a budget together and keep 11 people happy. when we only have 187 million and we need about double that to really get everything we want done. So I do appreciate that. So, okay, so the motion's on the floor. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much. Unanimously supported. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is 15.1. It's under general correspondence, R&L Paxton, installation of stoplight cameras and radar. Recommendation is to refer this letter to the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is a Committee of the Whole recommendation, and it would be item 17.1. And it's with respect to compressed work week trial. The resolution would read, resolve that council authorize the CAO to design and implement a flexible time options program that will include a compressed work schedule option for some employee groups within the city's workforce, and that provides for Monday through Friday public access to service centers, with the exception of proclaimed holidays, concluding the current compressed work week trial by January 3rd, 2025. The new flexible time options program will be effective as of January 6th, 2025.
Thank you, Deputy Seconder, Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is 17.2 from Committee of the Whole. It's a land exchange agreement with Timothy and Donna Collins of Upper Loch Lomond. The resolution would be that resolved that the city enter into an amended and restated land exchange agreement generally in the form as presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting held on October 28th, 2024 with Timothy and Donna Collins, and further that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement and any other documents necessary to effect the transaction.
Take a mover, please. Councillor Stewart and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is 17.3, Committee of the Whole recommendation with respect to legal proceeding against BGC Engineering, Inc. The resolution is resolved that the city settle its claim against Ken Howard in the West Wells litigation on the terms and conditions outlined to Committee of the Whole at its meeting held October 28th, 2024, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any documents necessary to effect the settlement.
Councillor Harris and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is a Committee of the Whole recommendation with respect to initiate the right of first refusal and negotiate agreement of purchase and sale for 75 Smythe Street. Recommendation is that the city agree to sell the parcel of land at 75 Smythe Street, PID 550-24251, on the terms and conditions as outlined in the Committee of the Whole at its meeting held on October 28th, and that the city issue to the Hardman Group Limited written notice setting out the terms and conditions as presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting held on October 28th, 2024, upon which the city upon which the city is prepared to sell its interest in the parcel of land at 75 Smythe Street, PID 550-24251, in accordance with Section 27 of the lease between the city and the Hardman Group Limited dated January 1, 1982.
Councillor Harris, yeah, and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is 17.5, Committee of the Whole recommendation with respect to early access agreement, Retail Drive realignment project. The resolution is that the city enter into an early access agreement with Clearview Homes Limited, East Point Inc., Multi-Line Leasing Inc., and Trinity Service Inc., generally in the form as presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting held on October 28, 2024, and acceptable to the city's general council for the purpose of allowing the city to begin construction work for the Retail Drive realignment project in advance of the city acquiring title to certain parcels of land, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the said early access agreement and any other documents ancillary thereto.
Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Norton on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Lowe. Is that our last one?
No, one more, Your Worship,
sorry.
is the
I'm trying to.
the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole with respect to appointments to committees.
Oh, yes, please.
So there are two there. The first one is that that Councillor Norton be appointed to the Public Safety Committee as chair to replace Councillor Hickey until the end of his current term on council. And the second one is that Councillor Stewart be appointed to the Finance Committee to replace Councillor Hickey until the end of his current term on council.
Okay, I'll take a mover and a seconder on that. Councillor Ogden and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Take a seconder. Deputy, it's you. Thank you, everyone.